Qin Shaohai lay on the bed in the luxurious presidential bedroom, tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep. He could never have imagined that just last week he was still a lowly employee in a foreign company, and now, inexplicably, he owned a warship, the planet Fortress, far surpassing Earth's technology. In the past, he worked a 9-to-5 job, earning a meager salary, barely making ends meet, constantly wary of office politics, and had to find ways to curry favor with the manager and those detestable foreign overlords just for a chance at a raise. As for promotion, no chance. In a coastal city of Panda Country, a monthly salary of less than 7,000 yuan was not too low, but it barely supported his family. Changing jobs was an option, but Qin Shaohai was a typical post-ADS homebody who was nostalgic and reluctant to move if he could help it. Because changing jobs meant adapting to a new environment, colleagues, and work. Once habits are formed, they are hard, but everything changed on February 20th, 2023. As usual, Qin Shaohai left home at 6:30 a.m. to catch the company shuttle, then dozed off for an hour on the bus, arriving at the company just before 8. However, when he woke up groggily, he found himself inside a car with almost no noise. The sudden change instantly dispelled his drowsiness. This is definitely not the shuttle, and there are no colleagues around. Have I been kidnapped? Qin Shaohai pondered while looking left and right. Perhaps noticing that Qin Shaohai in the back seat was awake, a young woman in a form-fitting outfit turned around with a smile and said gently, "You're awake. Don't worry. They'll take you to the control room first, where someone will explain everything. Just rest and get some sleep." Qin Shaohai was somewhat at a loss. The young woman before him had an indescribable quality. Beautiful, but not in a seductive or innocent way, rather a confident, elegant, and comforting beauty, like a sculpted perfection, as if she were an artificially crafted masterpiece. Her voice was also extremely beautiful, not a babyish tone, nor a coquettish one, nor a rough one. Rather, it sounded like a modulated voice, as if it carried a subtle background harmony, very pleasant and soothing. Later he learned that she had been designed. Every move, every word, her figure and appearance were all designed according to the principle of ultimate. Her gentle, sweet voice had a healing effect. Just a few words from the beauty made Qin Shaohai lower much of his guard. After all, he thought he was not a handsome boy, not a rich heir, not from a wealthy family, nor from a powerful clan. No one would go through the trouble of kidnapping him. The car exuded a soft, slightly sweet fragrance that was very pleasant to smell, perhaps the scent of perfume from the young woman in front. With his guard down, Qin Shaohai was now wide awake and curiously examined the interior, soft, semi-enclosed seats that reclined and could rotate freely. There were 2 seats in front, but no driver was visible, likely autonomous driving. It wasn't that high-tech, since autonomous driving, though not fully replacing humans, was certainly suitable for specific locations. The car had only 1 seat in the back, obviously a custom-made private vehicle. There were some strange buttons and screens, all turned off. The windows were tinted brown, giving a slightly dim feel, but still comfortable to the eyes. Then Qin Shaohai suddenly noticed that to the right of the car was the sea with large waves. The shore consisted of metal breakwaters. Looking around, there were no typical tourist landmarks, no hotels, parking lots, or stalls. Only rows of metal warehouse-like buildings and metal roll-up doors, each at least 5 meters high, with huge numbers like 83, 84 printed on them. These metal doors and the connected passages showed extensive oxidation, as if no one had maintained the place for decades, and crucially, the metal surfaces near the sea had no anti-rust paint. Suddenly, Qin Shaohai spotted a strange aircraft flying overhead, one he had never seen before. Its body was extremely bloated, a bizarre design that completely ignored aerodynamics. Looking toward the sea, he could vaguely see 3 or 4 warships floating nearby. A bit bewildered, he quickly rotated his seat to look behind the car. There were several kinds of vehicles shuttling back and forth, and farther away on the 2nd and 3rd levels, rows of planes were visible. Must be fighter jets, Qin Shaohai thought. "Mr. President, we've arrived. Please step out," the young woman said with a smile. "WTF, what?" Qin Shaohai was genuinely startled by the address. Years of office politics and business negotiations had trained him. Though very surprised, Qin Shaohai did not overreact. Instead, he tried to fake confidence and straightened his back to maintain composure. Thinking as he moved, Qin Shaohai stepped out of the car. To buy time and hide his surprise, he straightened his clothes while taking in the surroundings. The car had stopped in front of a colossal metal building at least 50 or 60 stories high, resembling the island of an aircraft carrier. He also noticed that at one of the building's entrances stood a dozen people dressed in the same form-fitting uniforms as the young woman in the car, with a simple solar system-like emblem on the left chest. The leader was a standard military officer with 2 gold stars on his shoulders, and the others wore similar uniforms, but with different ranks. A middle-aged man in a blue uniform smiled and said, "Mr. President, welcome to the Planet Fortress. Please come in. I will answer your questions." Qin Shaohai had no choice. Even if he wanted to run, he didn't know how to escape, so he decided to follow the group and see what was happening. Moreover, the enormous metal building and the strange aircraft had piqued the interest of this military enthusiast. soon led by the man Qin Shaohai, entered the interior of the planet fortress. They took an elevator surrounded by display screens and quickly arrived at the floor of the control center. In the middle of a curved corridor, Qin Shaohai saw what they called the control center. Though Qin Shaohai was completely confused and didn't understand what the planet fortress was, everything he saw was eye-catching and unique. The architecture felt like being inside a sci-fi movie similar to the space station in The Wandering Earth. He was full of curiosity. Looking at the control center, it wasn't very large with a conventional layout. On the front wall hung a huge curved screen about 7,080 meters wide by 30-40 meters high. There was a meeting table with over a dozen leather chairs. Beyond a transparent glass wall were workstations like those in a space control center, but there was also a slightly larger console raised higher covered with buttons, monitors, and control sticks. An overwhelming sense of sci-fi and mechanical aesthetics hit him. How many men had dreamed of such a scene in their youth? Now it stood before him. Qin Shaohai's mind raced, but he couldn't make sense of it all. The word president particularly stirred his imagination. Though his mind was racing, his steps didn't stop. The young woman from the car led him to the head of the meeting table and seated him. Then a female military officer aged about 30 to 40 with refined features stepped forward and said, "We come from the sub-universe of Alpha Canis Majoris, commonly known as Sirius. In Earth terms, we are artificial intelligence beings from Alpha Canis Majoris in a four-dimensional universe. Due to an external factor causing a plasma magnetic field exchange between Sirius A and Sirius B, a magnetic interaction with the solar system occurred, and we were inadvertently transported here. During the transport, a three-dimensional transformation caused all biological life on the planet fortress to vanish, leaving only us artificial intelligences. The planet fortress is an interstellar warship capable of operating not only on the sea, but also in the air and outer space. However, due to the three-dimensional transformation, the ship's power system has shrunk tens of thousands of times, so it currently only has the ability to sail on the sea, having lost its flight capability. The intelligent control system of the planet fortress does not yet have the capability to release the shrunk power. This involves the transformation between 3 and 4 dimensions. We hope that human engineers on Earth can help us solve this problem so that the planet fortress can return to space. So you brought me here to help find scientists?" Qin Shaohai asked tentatively. The young woman who picked him up smiled and replied, "Not entirely. Whether it's the warship, its weapons, or us artificial intelligences, we all require a biological human to control them. That's the basic setting. The former captain, engineers, senior officers, scientists, and sailors all disappeared during the three-dimensional transformation. So we can only search for a suitable presidential candidate based on their biological indicators. Due to cosmic homology, it is possible to find an Earthling matching the biological indicators. Homology here means the main genome in DNA. Humans on Earth have 3 billion base pairs which make up who you are. But among these 3 billion base pairs, only a tiny portion is unique to you. The vast majority is shared with others. To put it simply, no matter who sits next to you, your genetic similarity is as high as 99. The remaining 0. 1 makes up your skin color, hair color, personality, susceptibility to certain diseases, and in fact, humans share more than 60 genetic similarity with some animals and plants on Earth. That's the homology among carbon-based life forms in the universe is high, so it is possible for us to find a suitable candidate on Earth. Therefore, after comparative scanning, we found a biological indicator with an extremely high match rate to the system. That is you, Mr. President. You scanned the entire globe and chose me. After the transport, the warship connected to Earth's internet communication and surveillance systems and can take over all databases. Through this information and data combined with the warship's genetic identification system, we scanned and found your match to be the highest. As for the so-called Western races, their degree of hybridization is too high and the monochromatic purity of their gene chains is low. Thus, only in your country is the purity of monochromatic gene chains more suitable. In simple terms, hybridization is a process of recombination within 0.01 of the genes. This recombination process requires sufficient time for gene self-fusion. If hybridization occurs within 5 generations, normal gene fusion is possible. If multiple hybridizations occur, the gene fusion may become chaotic or even defective. Sometimes these genetic defects manifest as different colored eyes, hair, skin, and facial features, but those are just outward appearances. The real genetic defects will gradually amplify who defective genes cannot be successfully matched by the system. As for you, Mr. President, the scan results show no heterochromatic condition in your gene chain, and it has the highest match with the former president's gene chain, so you automatically become our new president. You only need to complete some procedural steps to be officially our president. Cosmic homology. It seems we are not alone in the universe. The starry sky is so vast. Every shining star is a solar system. It would be strange if there were no aliens. It is like looking at the night sky. Though beautiful, the more you look, the more fearful you become, because you, and even the entire Earth, are so insignificant, Qin Shaohai thought to himself. Looking at all the people smiling at him, Qin Shaohai thought for a moment and asked, "I don't have the right to refuse, do I?" "There is no such option, Mr. President. The selection by the Planet Fortress is compulsory. There are no alternatives," the young woman said with a gentle smile, as if he had anticipated this result. After all, a high-level warship system chooses someone it wouldn't easily change. After a long pause, Qin Shaohai asked, "How much power do I have as president?" "Mr. President, you have supreme power on this planet. You can go anywhere you want, do anything you want. No one will stop you, and no one can stop you. What is your name? How should I address you?" Qin Shaohai asked the uniformed young woman. "Mr. President, I don't have a name on Earth yet. My previous code was a serious designation, which is not suitable here. You can name me Mr. President." The young woman smiled. "Then you shall be called Lan Yuer. From now on, you are my personal secretary. I want you to show me around this planet fortress," Qin Shaohai said, barely containing his excitement. The crowd gaped in astonishment at Qin Shaohai. It was the first time today that Qin Shaohai had seen these intelligent beings display such an expression, so it seemed they were not limited to smiles. "What's wrong? Is there a problem?" Qin Shaohai asked in confusion. The young girl spoke excitedly. "Mr. President, you want to appoint me as your personal secretary. That's a B5 level identity. I'm currently only a receptionist at E1 level. The gap is too vast. No intelligent being has ever been promoted by so many ranks. In a 100-year lifespan, an intelligent can at best rise from E1 to C1. No AI has ever skipped level to reach level. C1 is the insurmountable ceiling for all intelligent beings. Level and above are reserved for humans. If Qin Shaohai interrupted her agitated words and asked, "What if I as president forcibly appoint you?" "It is possible, Mr. President," the young girl said, resuming her professional smile. "Then it's settled." Qin Shaohai didn't really understand what this rank meant, but as president, he wanted to test the power and authority of his position. After all, this place was both unfamiliar and wondrous to him, and he was the only human here. What Qin Shaohai didn't know was that this appointment was far from simple. An intelligent being promoted to level would be endowed by the ship's intelligent control center with human flesh, blood, and consciousness. In other words, the moment Qin Shaohai completed the presidential procedures, the appointment would take effect, and the transformation of the young girl Lan Yuer would begin simultaneously. After a series of procedures, including genome matching, biometric data entry, planet fortress, operation tutorials, weapon restriction commands, and interplanetary safety regulations, Qin Shaohai officially became the commander of the planet fortress, concurrently serving as the president of its onboard social ecosystem. Having completed all this, Qin Shaohai couldn't wait to have Lan Yuer show him around this planetary-class warship. It was then that Qin Shaohai first understood the scale of this enormous planetary-class vessel. The command control center was about 70 stories high, approximately 230 meters, 22 floors were underwater, about 70 meters, and 48 floors above water, about 160 meters. The base measured 2300 meters by 970 meters. Qin Shaohai renamed the command control center as No. 01 Command Island. The entire warship stretched over 13 kilometers in length and over 4 kilometers in width. Apart from the island, the average height above water was 90 meters with 4 decks above the surface. The flight deck was on the topmost layer, featuring 3 launch zones, 1 in front of the command island and 1 on each side. Each launch zone consisted of several retractable tunnels. The third deck and part of the second deck housed the hangars. The remainder of the second deck was used for weapons and aviation-related warehouses. 2 runways were suspended on each side of the ship, with an additional widened takeoff runway on each side. 2 intersecting runways ran near the middle of the ship, making a total of 4 runways. Weapon zones were located at the bow and stern, along with areas atop the island, forming the 3 major onboard weapon zones. Additionally, the bottom and sides of the warship were fitted with self-defense weapons. On the first deck and the negative first deck, located fore and aft of the island, were 2 social ecological zones with dome protection systems. These zones contained all necessary living facilities, along with 2 sets of flora and fauna circulation systems, providing fresh vegetables, fruits, and animals to supplement human protein. Since intelligent beings had little need for such things, few people resided there. Only a handful maintaining basic operations. Because the planet fortress had not been on a mission before transmission, its carrier air wing was not fully equipped. Currently, it deployed 270 space fighters, over 40 space orbital bombers, and fewer than 100 transport and other support aircraft. The bottom of the warship carried heavy equipment for 6 Marine brigades. Qin Shaohai had reorganized the brigade establishment. Each brigade consisted of 4 battalions plus 2 auxiliary support battalions. This arrangement helped him better grasp the specifics, as he chose not to adopt the original ship's force structure. When Qin Shaohai first boarded, he saw 4 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers produced by the planet fortress based on Earth's advanced warships patrolling the perimeter. Meanwhile, 4 Seawolf-class nuclear submarines lurked underwater. At that moment, the planet fortress was positioned near the Point Nemo in the central Pacific Ocean. With no other ships or aircraft nearby, there was still a chance of satellites passing overhead. Hence the Planet Fortress had its stealth interception system activated. These Earth-style military weapons were built to handle sudden contact incidents, as the Planet Fortress was currently in stealth mode. After 2 days of transformation, Lan Yuer appeared before Qin Shaohai in an even more realistic state. She looked more beautiful and alluring. Her devilish figure in the same tight uniform exuded temptation. The gilded character's personal secretary on her badge stirred Qin Xiaohai's fantasies. Lan Yuer's expressions had also become far more varied. Accompanied by her, Qin Shaohai spent almost every day flying a small aircraft around the warship, gradually memorizing its structure and basic compartments. But fully mastering this colossal vessel would likely take a year or two. When the small aircraft landed on the island's landing pad, Lan Yuer asked, "Mr. President, where else would you like to go?" Qin Shaohai thought for a moment and said, "Are there any guns on the ship? Give me one to try." Lan Yuer laughed lightly and said, "Mr. President, we can manufacture any gun that exists on Earth. We also have guns that don't exist on Earth, like the Sirius neutron gun and the lightspeed gun. What kind of gun would you like to try, eh?" "Great. I really love the Type 191 precision rifle," Qin Shaohai said excitedly. "Give me 10 magazines." Lan Yuer checked on her wrist computer and said hesitantly, "Mr. President, I couldn't find any record of this Type 191 precision rifle. Are you sure you've remembered correctly?" "What? Such a simple rifle with photos and data all over the internet. You can't find it?" Qin Shaohai asked angrily. After several days of being treated like a star as the president, he had quickly adapted to his role, and his tone had become more stern. "Yes, Mr. President, it really can't be found," Lan Yuer said, looking troubled. "Impossible. A rifle that's been mass-produced can't be found. Well, then bring me an M4 to play with." "No. If even the Type 191 is missing, then. Unless. Qin Shaohai suddenly stopped. "Could it be that I've traveled back to some year in the past?" "Lan Yuer, what year is it now?" "Mr. President, this year is 2005 according to the Gregorian calendar on Earth." "What? 2005? Did the interstellar magnetic interaction affect time?" Qin Shaohai quickly processed his situation. He had traveled back to 2005, and there was no way to return. Under his feet was a superplanetary warship far beyond Earth's technology. Could he now realize the fantasies he once harbored as a frustrated youth? Fantasizing about many scenarios and stories, Qin Shaohai said to Lan Yuer, "Lan Yuer, take me for a ride in one of those aircraft. Let's go somewhere else. Also, do you have any communication devices so I can stay in touch with the Planet Fortress?" "One that can keep me in communication with the Planet Fortress." "Mr. President, our onboard communication system can access any Earth communication network. We can also integrate a communication system into any object you designate. Then put it on my glasses." "Very well, Mr. President. We've already scanned your glasses. A custom pair will be delivered shortly." Lan Yuer looked at her wrist computer and added, "It contains a communication system, a small intelligent terminal to help analyze image data, and can connect directly to the ship's AI control system when needed. Then arrange it. Get the aircraft ready and set off immediately." "Very well, I'll arrange a special plane for you." Soon 2 soldiers brought an M4 carbine. Qin Shaohai mimicked the actions from Counter-Strike, inserting the magazine with near-professional moves. Under Lan Yuer's gaze, he extended his right hand, hooked the shaped charging handle with the crook of his thumb, and pulled it back in a cool motion. A crisp click echoed as the round chambered. "Ah, Lan Yuer. Quick. It's pinching my skin. Ah, it hurts. It hurts. Does your combat spaceship come with a private jet?" "Of course you are the president. If we classify it by Earth standards, you are akin to a national leader, so you certainly have a private jet. Even if not, the Planetary Fortress can quickly construct the most advanced private jet for you on Earth." "Sigh, it seems that adapting to this identity will take some time," Qin Shaohai said. The two arrived at the second layer of the flight deck at the back of the ship island, and Qin Shaohai saw a silver Boeing 747 quietly parked there with no numbers or logos on the fuselage. Curious, he asked, "Is this a Boeing 747? Why are there no markings?" "To conceal our presence and provide convenience for the president, we can only replicate what exists on Earth. After our selection, this type of aircraft is more suitable for the president's travel. The fuselage number and logo will be adjusted automatically based on the situation, so please do not worry, Mr. President." "So this plane is also intelligent. It can change the fuselage information and even the transponder code based on the destination or other requirements." "Of course, Mr. President, these are very basic technologies." Blue Yuer began to call out, "Mr. President, please prepare for boarding. You all teams, please get ready." Qin Shaohai hurriedly asked, "Blue Yuer, what is this?" "Mr. President, your travel has strict regulations requiring the accompaniment of a security team and escort." "Oh right, the president does have special security. Let's first circle around the small notebook in the air." Blue Yuer hesitated for a moment before asking, "Mr. President, where is the small notebook you mentioned?" "The battleship's database did not find such a place name." The small notebook refers to the neon country Neon, Qin Xiaohai emphasized. Blue Ware shook her head and said, Mr. President, it still cannot be found. That's impossible. Although this island nation is a bit small, it can't be untraceable. Bring up the electronic map, and it'll point it out to you. Blue Ware then opened the quantum interactive projection map. It was Qin Xiaohai's first time seeing this, although he had heard that the so-called electronic sand table system could project the rotating Earth before his eyes was so realistic, as if he were truly in space, gazing down at the planet. What amazed Qin Xiaohai even more was that when he touched or interacted with this holographic image, the Earth magnified at the point of contact. This holographic image can be operated by touch. Qin Xiaohai asked in astonishment. Yes, Mr. President, this is quantum interactive holographic technology. You can completely regard it as a real object, you can operate it freely, and the system will recognize your commands. This is too sci-fi, Qin Xiaohai said while manipulating the globe, and then pointed to the location of the small notebook. Right here, the small notebook I mentioned, the neon country, is this island nation. Mr. President, according to the records in the Planetary Fortress database, this location belongs to a country called Dongi. This might be a language translation issue, Qin Xiaohai thought. Resolving the naming issue for the destination, Qin Xiaohai boarded the 747 with Blue Ware and several guards. Upon boarding the plane, Qin Xiaohai found that it was not configured like an ordinary passenger aircraft. It contained only a few luxurious seats. The rest were small compartments with a guard room at each end of the plane and a guest cabin, presidential cabin, security cabin, conference room, lounge, bathroom, bedroom, and a small onboard medical room in between. Qin Xiaohai and Blue Ware directly walked toward the presidential cabin, where some private jet staff and guards stood up to pay their respects. Watching the plane slowly take off, Qin Xiaohai was gradually adapting to this role. Looking at the 6 space fighters clad in F-15 fighter jet covers escorting the private jet, and then glancing at the sci-fi equipment in the cabin, Qin Xiaohai fell into deep thought. Suddenly, a red flashing appeared on Qin Xiaohai's glasses, and a small escort ship appeared in his view. Mr. President, the Planetary Fortress has detected an escort ship belonging to the overseas territory of John Country 200 nautical miles away. Its course will pass near the Planetary Fortress, which poses a danger of close approach. Oh, what measures do you have to deal with it? Qin Xiaohai asked curiously. Under normal circumstances, we have 3 handling options. 1 is to sink it directly, 2 is to take over the battleship's control and force it to leave, and 3 is to create a short-range jump point in front of the battleship, allowing it to autonomously reach another sea area through the jump. However, the battleship's current power system is too weak, and this function can only initiate a 50-kilometer short-range jump. Sinking is unnecessary. There is no land within 2,000 kilometers of Nemo Point. Sinking them would mean they wouldn't survive. A 50-kilometer jump is also meaningless, so let's take over the battleship's control, Qin Xiaohai commanded. Understood, Mr. President. Blue Ware tapped her wrist communicator. Presidential order, take over the control of the John battleship and force a return. After conveying the order, Blue Ware said to Qin Xiaohai, Mr. President, the private jet is about to accelerate. Slowly, Qin Xiaohai noticed that the clouds outside the window were becoming increasingly blurry and asked Blue Ware what was happening. Blue Ware replied with a sweet smile, Mr. President, this is because the passenger jet is fast. Our cruising speed is now 9 Mach, but you need not worry, the cabin has added multi-ring anti-gravity generators, so you won't feel much gravitational acceleration. We will arrive over the main island of Dongi in about 45 minutes. Mr. President, would you like to lower the altitude to survey Dongi, or do something else? Let's circle around the capital of Dongi and check out their capital and main island, then fly south to Ryukyu for a visit. Special forces, please arrange according to the President's command, Blue Ware ordered, raising her wrist. Qin Xiaohai heard a series of commands immediately sound. Take over the radar system around Dongi, modify the air traffic control system around Dongi. Close the communication lines of the Dongi Air Self-Defense Force. Block the satellite surveillance network over Dongi. Establish an aerial shielding passage and shut down the air defense systems near the corresponding passage. At this time, Blue Ware reminded Mr. President detected our 2 Dongi Air Self-Defense Force F-2 fighter jets and 2 SAM countries 7th Fleet F-18 fighter jets conducting aerial drills near the area south of the capital bay, close to Yokosuka. Qin Xiaohai saw images of these fighter jets in the sky appear on his glasses. Ware ordered the system to take over the missile control systems of these fighter jets, allowing them to fire at each other. Mr. President, they are all carrying training munitions, and firing at each other won't bring them down, Blue Ware asked with confusion. During aerial drills, they are definitely carrying training munitions. I know that if we don't cause them some trouble, how will they yield airspace to us? Understood, Mr. President, this might scare the other pilots, Blue Ware said with wide eyes, smiling cheerfully. Oh, this artificial intelligence can talk like this. Qin Xiaohai was taken aback, thinking indeed this technology is more advanced than Earth's. This level of intelligence is truly extraordinary. Just as Qin Shaohai was lost in thought over the skies of Dongyi, a ripple warning appeared on the glass's display, and Blue Yuer hurriedly said, "Mr. President, the planetary fortress has detected a magnetic vortex appearing on Earth with the coordinates of the vortex being 122,612, 67 in 520,822, 2080. It is a suddenly appearing magnetic gravitational vortex, but the energy is low, only level 2. Qin Shaohai asked in confusion, what does this mean? What does level 2 represent? Why would the planetary fortress detect such a thing? Where is this coordinate? Mr. President, the planetary fortress was transported here by a magnetic vortex. At the same time, the planetary fortress can also create a jump point around the battleship, allowing it to instantaneously move to another location. This is also a type of magnetic vortex. To explain in your Earth's language, a magnetic vortex can be understood as a stargate or a wormhole. The entire universe is filled with gravitational forces. Even in the dark space of some star systems, there exists gravity from neighboring star systems, or dark matter gravity, or black hole gravity. But the universe is vast with too many uncertainties. When a region or location experiences a sudden decrease or increase in gravity, that area will exhibit a gravitational vortex, also known as a magnetic gravitational vortex. The entire universe is constant. When a gravitational vortex appears in one area, it means that a corresponding gravitational vortex will appear in another area, many naturally occurring gravitati. However, manufactured vortices are extremely dangerous. Only high-level civilizations can create bidirectional vortices, which is what you Earthlings refer to as wormholes for transportation. The magnetic vortex detected by the planetary fortress is classified as level 2. Level 2 vortices can only facilitate molecular transportation, hence pose no danger. But if the vortex level reaches above level 5, it can transport a vehicle or even a small airplane, and the energy surrounding the vortex will reach 1012 joules, roughly equivalent to 477 tons of TNT. If the location of the vortex appears on land, it will trigger at least a level 4 earthquake, and if in the sea, it can also cause a tsunami. I understand you are. So where is this discovered vortex located? The Gulf of Aden, Blue Yuer replied. Qin Shaohai ordered the private jet to swiftly reach the Gulf of Aden region, yet detected no anomalies, nor did the onboard equipment register any vortex energy. Hailing from the future, Qin Shaohai was well aware of the rumors surrounding the 2010 Gulf of Aden Stargate. Though nothing was found, he still dispatched probes into the sea and maintained constant surveillance of energy fluctuations in the vicinity. Subsequently, Qin Shaohai altered the fleet's course to visit the U.S. Fifth Fleet before ordering the jet to return to the planetary fortress. Upon returning to the planetary fortress, Qin Shaohai convened his first assembly of officers. Unfamiliar with the ship's command structure, he tasked Lan Yuer with summoning the relevant commanding officers. Gazing upon the array of intelligent beings clad in diverse uniforms, Qin Shaohai could not articulate the sensation save for the certainty that they all heeded his commands. Who is in charge of the military forces on this vessel? Qin Shaohai inquired. The officer who had greeted him beneath the ship's island structure rose and replied, "Mr. President, I am." "Very well, you shall be called Lin Pete. Your rank shall be Minister of Defense, a full ministerial position at level C1. Brief me on our armed forces." "Yes, Mr. President." The vessel currently hosts 210 naval personnel, including 120 Marines and 900 for ship operations, maintenance, and logistics. The standard complement of the planetary fortress is 900, allowing an additional 8100 to operate future vessels. The Marine Corps comprises 6 brigades of 200, each capable of equipping various terrestrial weaponry as needed. Per ship regulations, our own equipment may only be deployed under specific circumstances with presidential authorization unless under direct attack. Beyond naval forces, the ship boasts 290 pilots for carrier-based aviation, encompassing fighters, bombers, and transport aircraft, alongside a 600-strong air assault unit. The vessel also maintains a police detachment and a security detachment, each numbering 800 tasked with ship security and the future shipboard societal order. In emergencies, they can be retrained for naval or air force roles. Finally, we have a presidential special guard of approximately 120, including 780 combat agents. Additionally, the ship houses over 700 auxiliary logistics and engineering personnel. Thus, the total crew of the planetary fortress stands at 34300. Due to the severe atrophy of the ship's power following its three-dimensionalization, the production of new intelligent beings is currently impossible. Good. Now tell me about the production capabilities, especially for weaponry, Qin Shaohai continued. The vessel has 2 production nests on its flanks, the left for large-scale equipment, the right for vast quantities of small-scale gear. Additionally, a giant equipment workshop is located at the stern, comprising 2 large and 1 small production units. With sufficient raw materials, the vessel can manufacture any product on this planet with production speed contingent on quality. Theoretically, producing a standard fighter takes about 2 days, a tank 2 days, a rifle 5 to 10 minutes, an aircraft carrier over 8.0 tons roughly 4 months, and an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer about half a month. Understood. How are we currently sourcing raw materials? Qin Xiaohai asked. Currently, we mine the seabed and salvage spacecraft wreckage in these waters. However, the resources here are limited, insufficient for large-scale production. We need to locate a new anchorage. Mr. President, here are the suitable anchorages identified through scanning. These areas harbor abundant mineral and oil deposits beneath the seabed. Qin Xiaohai scrutinized the marked locations on the screen, deliberating on his choice. To best aid his homeland, the site could not be too distant nor too close lest interests overlap. Ultimately, he selected an uninhabited triangular islet east of the Eastern Barbarians marked as a Japanese-owned Minamotori Island and pointed, "Here it is." Then used the photos in my phone to replicate fighters and warships, replacing our current replicas to minimize exposure. Qin Xiaohai said, handing his phone to Lan Yuer. The phone contained images of the Type 191 precision rifle, the J-20 stealth fighter, the Type 052DL, and Type 055 destroyers, and the J-35, still a prototype even in later eras. For ground forces there was the Z-10 attack helicopter, and for submarines the Seawolf class would suffice. Mr. President, this area currently belongs to the Eastern Barbarians. Arriving there could, under Earth's rules, trigger conflict with them. Given the defense pact between the Eastern Barbarians and the United States, the likelihood of U.S. intervention would increase significantly. I know. Of course I know, Qin Xiaohai sneered. Very well, Mr. President. I suggest we accelerate production of warships and aircraft likely needed in a conflict during transit. Certainly. Assess and produce accordingly. However, modify the existing Arleigh Burke-class and F-15S to avoid drawing U.S. attention. Alter them subtly or use the equipment from my phone. Qin Xiaohai cautioned, then grew solemn as a thought struck him. Minimize exposure at all costs. Do not let any nation or individual discover your origins. Otherwise, the Western media's control and brainwashing capabilities will paint us as an alien invasion uniting the world against us. As Qin Xiaohai finished the display, analyzed the military strengths of the Eastern Barbarians and U.S. forces stationed there, projecting the minimum naval and air assets required for an initial conflict: at least 5 to 6 destroyers, 24 fighters for early warning aircraft, 120 Marine commandos, and at least 1 aircraft carrier for deterrence. Seeing this, Qin Xiaohai said, very well. The stern shipyard of the planetary fortress will produce the aircraft carrier modeled after the Variac, but modify it with reference to the Kitty Hawk. Install 2 steam catapults, convert the forward deck to a flat top, and enlarge the deck and hull to achieve an 8,000-ton displacement. Begin production now. Though it won't be ready for the initial conflict, it will be useful later. Also expedite the modification of the 4 completed Arleigh Burke-class destroyers to obscure their identity. Alter their exteriors, the rest can remain unchanged for now. Simultaneously produce 2 Type 052DL destroyers using the photos on my phone. The internal systems and armaments can be adapted by the Intelligent Control Center according to this era's technological characteristics. For fighters, choose the J-16 from my phone or modify the F-15, perhaps by incorporating variable sweep wings from the F-14. Anything to ensure they are not recognizable as F-15S. Understood, Mr. President. The information has been fed into the ship's intelligent control system. By the way, who is responsible for diplomacy? A refined woman of about 40 rows, Mr. President. By designation, I handle external communications and convey your policies. Excellent. You shall be the Minister of Foreign Affairs, a full ministerial position at level C1. Your name will be Hilla. Avoid overly cynicized names, they may hinder my grand plans. Thank you, Mr. President. Next, I wish to establish the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Industry. Reporting, Mr. President. By designation, I oversee production technology and RD. Aligning with your described ministry, said an older intelligent being in a blue uniform. Good. You are now the Minister of Science, Technology, and Industry, a full ministerial position at level C1. Your name shall be Tesla. I also require a Prime Minister. Who among you fits this role? All exchanged glances and none stood. Qin Xiaohai rephrased, someone to oversee diplomacy, livelihood, science, agriculture, education, infrastructure, national policy, finance, trade, and the like. 2 intelligent beings rose. One said, Mr. President, after analysis, none fully meet your criteria. However, the 2 of us collectively cover several aspects. Intrigued, Qin Xiaohai said, let's hear it. Mr. President, my programming includes diplomacy, livelihood, science, agriculture, and education. The other added, Mr. President, mine covers infrastructure, national policy, finance, and trade. So they were not designed as omniscient, only proficient in a few areas. The serious people must have been cautious, Qin Xiaohai mused. I understand. I hereby decide that upon reaching Minamatory Island, we will expand and establish a defensive perimeter, and when the time is right, found a new nation, its name to be announced later. For now, I declare a rotating prime ministerial system. Both of you are temporarily at level C1, full ministerial rank, serving 2-year terms in rotation. Pointing to the tall, handsome, intelligent being, Qin Shaohai said, "You shall be called Chris." To the younger one with Eastern features, he said, "You shall be called Damo." Together you form the Sword of Damocles. Additionally, I appoint Lan Yuer as the concurrent Minister of Ship Management and Administration. For now, these are the appointed full ministers. We'll consult as situations arise. After the briefing, Qin Shaohai retired to his quarters, requesting Lan Yuer to tutor him on the vessel's knowledge. As for what followed when study grew tiresome, that shall be omitted by 20,000 words. Yet observing Lan Yuer's docility, elegance, and allure, Qin Shaohai, a man in his prime, felt a flicker of temptation. As he walked, he mused, a touch or a caress. Would that earn me a slap? The planetary fortress, leisurely sailing for 4 months, is about to reach the waters of South Bird Island in the southeast of Dongi Kingdom. The slow pace of navigation is not due to a lack of power, but rather to allow time for equipment production. Qin Shaohai tirelessly explored the functions of the battleship with Lan Yuer, and together with several ministers, they constructed the framework of their departments. Hard work pays off. Qin Shaohai not only grasped the basic functions of the battleship, but also discovered that Lan Yuer is no different from women on Earth. Flesh and blood with intact organs and functions, and notably her skin is delicate and elastic. Meanwhile, the initial armed forces of the battleship have been largely established, utilizing the latest weaponry of this era with modifications to appearance and some internal functions based on existing armaments. Today, Qin Shaohai officially conducted the appointment of the National Defense Force. Standing on a temporarily constructed platform on the second deck, accompanied by Lan Yuer and a group of ministers, he announced to the neatly lined-up military leaders below, "We are about to establish a powerful maritime kingdom upon this vast ocean, dedicated to eliminating hegemony and serving all humanity. I hereby declare that the name of this nation is the Hedes Maritime Kingdom, its meaning drawn from the ancient civilization that once experienced the prosperous eras of the Han and Tang dynasties. Hence, our country's name is derived from the initials of Han and Tang. Our armed forces will consist of the National Defense Army and the Planetary Fortress Defense Army. The Planetary Fortress Defense Army will utilize the weapons originally equipped on the Planetary Fortress as the last resort of our emerging nation. The National Defense Army will employ weaponry manufactured on the battleship modeled after Earth's equipment. The National Defense Army is divided into the Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, and Police Force, including peacekeeping police. The commander of the Navy is Lan Zhongli, holding the rank of Rear Admiral with a deputy ministerial position at level C2, and the Marine Corps is under the Navy's jurisdiction. The Navy will be organized into 3 fleets: the Eastern Fleet, responsible for the area east of the nation to the Americas, temporarily composed of 1 aircraft carrier Pippi Shrimp, 4 simulated 052D destroyers, 6 simulated 054A frigates, and 3 Sea Wolf-class nuclear submarines. The carrier will carry simulated F-14J, 15FJ, 15 aircraft totaling 78, along with 8 simulated Black Hawk ZJ, 20 armed transport helicopters, 8 simulated Mi-8 ZT-8 transport anti-submarine rescue special aircraft, and 4 electronic warfare aircraft, and 4 yet 3C early warning aircraft, with additional vessels to be supplemented later. The Western Fleet, responsible for the area west of the nation to the first island chain, is temporarily composed of 1 aircraft carrier Spider Crab, 4 destroyers, 2 052D, and 2 Burke-class 12 simulated 054A frigates, and 4 Sea Wave-class nuclear submarines. The carrier will carry 78 FJ, 15 aircraft, 8 ZJ, 20 armed transport helicopters, 8 ZT-8 transport anti-submarine rescue special aircraft, 4 electronic warfare aircraft, and 4 yet 3C early warning aircraft, with additional vessels to be supplemented later. The Coastal Fleet, responsible for the defense and patrol of the nation, is temporarily composed of 4 amphibious dock landing ships, 4 tank landing ships, and 1 amphibious assault ship equipped with 22 simulated AV-8B CJ, 8B vertical takeoff and landing fighter jets, 16 ZJ, 20 armed transport helicopters, and 8 ZT-8 transport anti-submarine rescue special aircraft, along with 16 054A frigates, 14 056 patrol vessels, and 10 4,000-ton Coast Guard ships equipped with 155mm naval guns and short-range air defense missiles. The Marine Corps will consist of 6 combined brigades plus 1 air assault brigade, organized from the 1st to the 6th Marine Brigade, along with the 11th Air Assault Brigade, equipped with 32 simulated WZ, 10 armed helicopters, 18 simulated Apache armed helicopters, 30 ZT-8 transports, and 42 ZJ, 20 general transport aircraft. The commander of the Air Force is Chung Feifeng, holding the rank of Major General with a deputy ministerial status at level C2. The Air Force is organized into 5 aviation divisions plus 1 airborne brigade. The 1st Division is equipped with 50 FJ-15 fighter jets modeled after F-15, 50 FJ-16 fighter jets modeled after J-16, and 20 FJ-20 fighter jets modeled after J-20, focusing on air superiority. The 2nd Division is equipped with 60 FJ-15 fighter jets modeled after F-15, 60 FJ-16 fighter jets modeled after J-16, and 120 F-A-10 ground attack aircraft modeled after A-10, focusing on ground attack. The 3rd Division is equipped with 30 simulated Y-20 transport aircraft, 50 simulated C-130 transport aircraft, and 40 ZT-8 transport helicopters, focusing on strategic delivery. The 4th Division is equipped with 20 HB-20 stealth bombers modeled after H-20 and 40 H-160 bombers modeled after Tu-160. The 5th Division is equipped with various early warning aircraft, refueling aircraft, anti-submarine aircraft, electronic warfare aircraft, and other special aircraft totaling 140, including 4 presidential aircraft managed by the 5th Division. The 12th Airborne Brigade. After the appointment ceremony, Qin Xiaohai, accompanied by rotating Prime Minister Dharma, Foreign Minister Hila, and Lan Yuer, entered a small conference room in the battleship's command island. I called you 3 separately to discuss some details about our kingdom, especially regarding how we will carry out the land. We will use South Bird Island as the foundation for the reclamation, while employing corrosion-resistant special steel for reinforcement. We are in a seismic zone, so we need your expertise to ensure our new territory is unaffected by earthquakes. Under special circumstances, it must have the ability to float in segments, meaning it can be towed by the planetary fortress. The reclaimed territory must reach 5,000 square kilometers, and additionally, we will establish 5 small islands around the land located 1 nautical mile from the main island. The purpose of the small islands is to serve as a barrier for the main island, where we will build military ports, airports, defense facilities, and more. The under construction Mars Island. Our planetary fortress must covertly anchor to the north of the main island, while also artificially establishing 3 small islands near the anchorage to protect the planetary fortress. The scope of our maritime kingdom will include 1 main island and 8 surrounding small islands. The main island will be named Hetties Island, and the 8 small islands will be named Mercury Island, Venus Island, Earth Island, Mars Island, Jupiter Island, Saturn Island, Uranus Island, and Neptune Island. The area of the main island must ensure it reaches or exceeds 5,000 square kilometers, and combined with the area of the 8 small islands, our Hetties Maritime Kingdom's total area must reach 6,000 square kilometers in order to build residential areas, commercial areas, tourist areas, government institutions, and military facilities. The architecture on the main island must maintain consistency to avoid easy recognition by foreign satellites. I suggest establishing 5 provinces on the main island with urban planning in these provinces referencing the Taiji diagram. The key government institutions should be located in the central area of Hetties Island, where a unique central island should be constructed. Important government institutions should operate on the central island, and civilians or tourists are prohibited from entering this area. Conceptual drawing of Hetties Island with the central island as the administrative district and 6 zones representing 5 provinces plus 1 special administrative region. The entire central island and adjacent areas will be designated as the political center special zone, named Zhongjing City. Apart from the Zhongjing City Special Zone, 5 provinces will be established from the center zone to the seaside, named Good Province, Goldwood Province, Woodwhat Province, Water Fei Province, Fire, and Shaoao Province, Soil, plus a northern military restricted area composed of 3 small islands named the Polaris Special Zone. The true Presidential Office, Ministry of National Defense, and other important institutions are located on the planetary fortress, while the institutions on land exist to integrate and communicate with this world. Thus, our nation will consist of 2 special zones and 5 provinces covering an area of 6,000 square. If there are no objections, let it be done as such. Please let Prime Minister Dharma take full responsibility, ensuring that the basic framework is completed by the end of this year at the latest, so that the nation can officially begin operations. Meanwhile, in my absence, Prime Minister Dharma may fully represent me in exercising authority. Minister Hila of the Foreign Ministry, I authorize you to announce the birth of the Hetties Maritime Kingdom to the world at 1800 tonight. Our nation is located at 24 in latitude and 153 in longitude, and we require any passing vessels and transiting aircraft to report their itineraries in advance. Additionally, we declare our territorial waters to be provisionally set at 12 nautical miles, with an exclusive economic zone extending 200 nautical miles outward. One day, as global news outlets were preoccupied with a celebrity scandal, a breaking story seized every headline. An obscure islet in the southwest of the Eastern Kingdom in the North Pacific had declared itself an independent maritime nation named the Kingdom of Hethys. The kingdom announced its cabinet, including Prime Minister Dharma, Foreign Minister Hila, Defense Minister Lin Pete, and Minister of Science, Technology, and Industry Terrace. Initially dismissed as a joke worldwide, the declaration of coordinates territorial waters and an exclusive economic zone compelled the global police force and its junior partner, the Eastern Kingdom, to dispatch naval vessels and aircraft for verification. The SAM country's Guam Island base urgently launched an EP-3 patrol aircraft and 2 F-15 fighters, while the Eastern Kingdom's Coast Guard dispatched a Takanama-class destroyer, the Takanami, along with 2 patrol ships for reconnaissance. Because the planetary fortress could access any nation's military or civilian network satellites and military communications, Qin Shaohai was fully aware of this reconnaissance mission. He promptly deployed 2 Type 052D destroyers, 2 Type 054A frigates, and 4 FJ-16 fighters to intercept. During this first formal show of force, Qin Shaohai and military command staff oversaw operations from the Flight Control Center on the Fortress Island. 230 nautical miles from the cloaked planetary fortress at an altitude of 400 meters aboard the SAM military's EP-3 electronic reconnaissance plane, Pete, it's strange. We usually head west toward the first island chain. Why northeast today? There's nothing out here. Jimmy, quiet down. Missions are the same everywhere. Who dares mess with the SAM Country Air Force? I just want to fly to the designated spot and get back fast. I just hooked an Easterny girl from the base. She used to be an actress, you know. Exciting, haha. Wait, seriously. Can I join you? Or maybe you could pass her to me in a few days. Dream on, unless. As Pete began to negotiate with Jimmy, a voice crackled through their headsets. SAM Country Air Force EP-3, this is the Kingdom of Heathis Air Force FJ-16 fighter. You are about to enter our exclusive economic zone. State your intentions, state your intentions. OMG guys, did you hear that? The Kingdom of Heathis. What the hell is that? There's no country here. This was all ocean. Am I hearing things? SAM Country Air Force EP-3, this is the Kingdom of Heathis Air Force FJ-16 fighter. You are about to enter our exclusive economic zone. Repeat, you are about to enter our exclusive economic zone. State your intentions, or I will take warning measures. Ignore them. Hold course. Let's see who dares act against our plane. SAM Country Air Force EP-3, this is the Kingdom of Heathis Air Force FJ-16 fighter. You are about to illegally enter our exclusive economic zone. This is your final warning, your final warning. If you do not state your intentions, I will take action. Maintain course and relay info to Guam Island. Suddenly, an FJ-16 fighter with the number 81192 appeared off the EP-3's left wing. Propelled by modified vector thrust engines, it executed an unbelievable Pugachev's Cobra, braking midair, then instantly changed direction and accelerated, flashing its belly directly in front of the EP-3's nose. Its 8 hardpoints were loaded with various missiles. WTF? How did they appear? Why didn't the F-15 escorts react? Call the F-15s to get in front of us. We're not a fighter. Perhaps hearing the EP-3's call or spotting the sudden appearance of the FJ-16s, the 2 F-15 fighters surged forward toward the incoming FJ-16 formation. Modified by the planetary fortress, the FJ-16s possessed overwhelming maneuverability and thrust-to-weight ratios against the F-15s. One FJ-16 began a barrel roll around an F-15, circling it again and again, terrifying the F-15 pilot into frozen stillness. He had seen a one-pass barrel roll before, but this relentless circling would have disoriented any ordinary pilot. Any ordinary aircraft would have suffered mechanical failure by now. Another FJ-16 performed sterns around the other F-15, entrapping it within the weaving pattern no matter how the F-15 maneuvered. The remaining 2 F-16s focused on the EP-3. One flew ahead, periodically dispensing chaff, while the other positioned itself behind, activating its targeting system. The shrill locked-on warning hammered the crew's hearts. After 5 minutes of stalemate, the SAM pilots finally broke. The EP-3 turned sharply away, but the F-15s were hopelessly entangled, unable to turn without risking collision, with the FJ-16s performing tactical maneuvers around them. It's about 200 kilometers to Guam Island. They came via aerial refueling. Let the FJ-16s tangle a few more minutes to check their fuel, Qin Shaohai ordered. Mr. President, monitoring shows the enemy F-15s have only 100 kilometers of fuel left. A KC-135 tanker is detected circling 700 kilometers away. Lon Yuer relayed the planetary fortress data. Good, Yuer. Take control of the KC-135S systems and execute an in-flight fuel dump. Leave not a drop. Lon Yuer looked at Qin Shaohai in shock. Mr. President, these F-15Cs have a theoretical combat radius of 1967 km, but an actual one of 1860 km. After minutes of dogfighting and afterburner use, despite one midair refueling, they only have fuel for 900 kilometers. They might not make it back. I know. Execute the order, Qin Shaohai commanded sternly. Mr. President, these pilots could fall into the sea. Given current water temperatures, even with full survival gear, they wouldn't last 2 hours. Lon Yuer as an AI could not grasp such human ruthlessness. 2 hours is enough for our frigates to reach them. Execute. Yes, Mr. President. A Type 054A frigate on nearby patrol has been ordered to the F-15's return route. L'Ennuyer swiftly issued commands. Finally, one side yielded. Kingdom of Hethys Air Force FJ-16. This is Sam Country Air Force F-15 escort. We are turning back. Clear the path, clear the path. Qin Xiaohai, not wishing for an extreme escalation, ordered the FJ-16s to cease maneuvers, hold the northeastern corridor, and clear the southwestern route for the F-15s to depart. The KC-135 tanker, its sensors jammed, remained unaware its fuel had been secretly drained. Hours later, when the returning F-15s rendezvoused with the KC-135, as planned, no fuel flowed into their tanks despite repeated attempts. After half an hour of futile efforts, they discovered the KC-135 was empty. The realization struck the pilots of the two F-15s single-seat C models like a thunderbolt. With no time to dispatch another tanker, and only about 100 kilometers of flight left after their ordeal, the two F-15s gradually descended below 0 meters, 110 kilometers north of Guan Island Base. Two white parachutes bloomed in the air. That evening, a Type 054A frigate, now about 200 kilometers from the pilot's location, launched a shipborne helicopter and rescued the two shivering aviators. Belatedly arriving SAM Navy rescue ships and helicopters found only two circular orange life rafts with no trace of the pilots. At 10 p.m., as the SAM country's defense secretary and secretary of state briefed the president on the Guan Island Report television networks, aired a breaking news bulletin. The new spokesperson for the Kingdom of Hethys Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Louis Fear, was speaking. Her stunning blonde hair, delicate and angular features, and perfect hourglass figure instantly captivated nearly every man watching the urgent broadcast. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Hethys is authorized to release the following statement at approximately 8 a.m. today. Within our southwestern exclusive economic zone, our Air Force detected a SAM country EP-3 electronic reconnaissance aircraft and two F-15C fighters trespassing. Our Air Force promptly dispatched 4 FJ-16 fighters to verify and expel them. During the operation, both sides demonstrated the professionalism and friendliness of modern air forces, exchanging courtesies before turning away. Unfortunately, the U.S. F-15 fighters, due to range limitations, exhausted their fuel during return and crashed. The pilots successfully ejected and were rescued. A frigate of our Navy on routine patrol nearby happened to pass by, received the pilots' distress signals, and in a humanitarian spirit rescued them. Both pilots are in generally good condition, but due to prolonged lack of water and food and the low local temperatures, they suffer from varying degrees of dehydration. Gentlemen, just 2 days ago I thought this was merely a jester's joke, but yesterday we lost 2 F-15 fighter jets worth tens of millions of dollars, and even our pilots fell into their hands. Can anyone tell me what is going on? Zhou Xiaobu, the president of the SAM country, said indignantly. George, we are as clueless as you about this so-called Hethys Ocean Kingdom. I've consulted the CIA, the FBI, the State Department, the National Security Council, and even the relevant UN agencies. None of them have ever heard of this so-called Hethys Ocean Kingdom. It's as if they appeared out of thin air. Secretary of State Lord said, Mr. President, I need to remind everyone that the FJ-16 fighter jets equipped by this so-called Hethys Ocean Kingdom possess astonishing performance. In dogfights with our F-15s, they can perform sterns and barrel rolls continuously for over 10 minutes. This technology is definitely beyond our comprehension, and their engines are even more advanced than our soon-to-be deployed F-22A fighters. The Secretary of Defense said with concern. Gentlemen, the SAM country will never allow an incident beyond our control, nor will we permit an unknown nation to influence our global strategy. Perhaps we should first let our proxy test the waters. Zhou Xiaobu said to the Secretary of State. 220 nautical miles west of Minamitarishima. Aboard the Takanama-class destroyer Takanami of the Dongi Country Coast Guard, Captain Kumamoto Terainosuke stared at the radar screen and said with unmistakable confusion, Is this so-called Hethys Ocean Kingdom real? Otherwise, how do you explain the small fleet that has appeared before our warship? Captain, I heard that Uncle Sam's Air Force got a bloody nose yesterday. Are we sure we want to try entering their exclusive economic zone? I'm not sure either. According to the law of the sea, as long as we state our intentions and pass through peacefully with our weapon systems shut down, there should be no problem. Until we gauge their true strength, this is the best course of action. But we cannot do that. Captain Kumamoto Terainosuke sighed, because their so-called Hethys Ocean Kingdom is right on our Minamitarishima. That is our island. How did they occupy it without reason? Whether Uncle Sam demands it or not, we must drive them away. Otherwise, the Prime Minister and the Chief Cabinet Secretary might be forced to resign. Captain, they are requesting communication, but... The communications officer said hesitantly. But what? They are using our encrypted channel, and the base can also receive the communication content, the communications officer said awkwardly. Nanny, how could they access our encrypted channel? Have our military secrets been compromised? Impossible. If they had been cracked, our SAM country allies would have informed us, as they used the same system. Hull number 110 Ongi Country Coast Guard Destroyer Takanami, your fleet is heading into our exclusive economic zone. Please state your intentions. Please state your intentions. Reply to them, our fleet is sailing into our own exclusive economic zone. Identify yourself and immediately leave our exclusive economic zone. Hull number 110 Ongi Country Coast Guard Destroyer Takanami, this is the final warning. You are approaching our exclusive economic zone. You have not stated your intentions. We suspect your fleet is hostile. This is the final warning. If you do not alter your course and withdraw, we will take measures to stop you. Baka, this is clearly our exclusive economic zone. Their actions are an act of aggression and they dare to threaten us with measures. Reply, demand they leave or we will use force to expel them. Captain, they are accelerating. The lookout reports they are flying the international signal flag D and a black ball indicating their warship has a mechanical failure. They are now 200 meters away and closing fast, the communications officer said nervously. Nani Kore, this is shameless. What a coincidence. Just as the verbal sparring begins, they suffer a mechanical failure. Bakayero, don't evade. Don't evade. In the command room of the planet fortress, Qin Shaohai cheerfully held his coffee reclining in the leather command chair, gazing at the massive curved holographic tactical display. Don't bother with them. Just ram them. Let's see if the warships built by the planet fortress can outmatch the little bookbinders. Their exclusive economic zone. I occupy it, so it's mine. Mr. President, please confirm the order. Lan Yuer, who doubled as his secretary, stared at Qin Shaohai with her big watery eyes. Continue to accelerate the destroyer and try to sink them in one hit. Remember, the little bookbinders will inevitably make an emergency turn to avoid us. Notify the shipboard command system to take control of the destroyer. It must calculate the moment their warship turns and ensure we ram and sink them, Qin Shaohai said. Bridge of the Takanami destroyer. Captain, distance 700 meters. 600 meters. 500 meters, Captain. If we don't evade now, it will be too late. Our speed is too low. If we don't accelerate in advance, we can't avoid the collision. I don't believe they will actually ram us. Don't turn. Maintain course. Captain Kumamoto Tarainosuke shouted, eyes wide. 350 meters. 280 meters. Captain, if we don't evade now, it will be too late. 200 meters. Captain. 160 meters. The officers in the command room were sweating profusely, staring at Captain Kumamoto Tarainosuke. Unable to bear it any longer, Kumamoto Tarainosuke had never seen such a mad captain. The other ship wasn't slowing down at all. He was definitely going for a close encounter on the high seas. He couldn't play along. If there was any loss, he couldn't bear the responsibility. Thinking this, Kumamoto Tarainosuke shouted, hard to starboard. Ahead full. Emergency evasion. Black smoke billowed from the Takanami's funnel as the warship accelerated at full power and turned to starboard. But a large warship accelerates slowly, unlike a car. In the Takanami's command room, everyone watched the approaching enemy ship, cursing inwardly. Baka, why is the acceleration so slow? Turn. Faster. It's too late. Just as the Takanami's crew thought they were about to clear the collision course, an unbelievable thing happened. The enemy destroyer followed their turn, its bow constantly pointing at their ship. 30 meters, sir. We're going to hit, the communications officer reported anxiously. Brace for impact. Captain Kumamoto Tarainosuke only managed to shout these words before a tremendous crashing sound came from the ship's midsection. The personnel on the bridge were tossed about like toys and then slammed heavily down. Feeling as if an eternity had passed, the dazed Captain Kumamoto Tarainosuke was helped to his feet, still reeling. He heard a faint voice as if someone was calling him, Captain, Captain. Flooding in the midsection. Severe damage to the midsection. Cannot be repaired. Cannot be repaired. The enemy destroyer has reversed and is pulling away. They're pulling away. What do we do? What do we do? Slowly recovering, Kumamoto Tarainosuke asked softly, is the ship listing? Captain, the ship is listing 7 degrees and continuing. Casualties. We can't contact the lower decks. The number of casualties is unknown. Please decide quickly, Captain. The list is now 8 degrees to port. Abandon ship. Abandon ship. Notify the patrol boat to come alongside and rescue the crew. Aye, Captain. An officer picked up the phone and shouted, abandon ship. Abandon ship. Notify the patrol boat to rescue us. Hurry. No. The news from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Hedes Ocean Kingdom has caused an uproar in global public opinion. The media of the pickled vegetable nation claims that this newly emerged Hedes Ocean Kingdom is trying to win the favor of the world by taking advantage of natural disasters. The media of the Dongi nation states that the Hedes Ocean Kingdom exhibited hostility towards Dongi from the very beginning, while the Dongi government displayed extreme confusion and weakness during this unexpected incident. The media of the Sam Nation reports that the Sam Nation has been dealt a severe blow by a new small oceanic country as 2 of the latest fighter jets belonging to the strongest aerial forces on this planet fell into the sea after a skirmish. We cannot help but suspect that the newly emerged Hedes Ocean Kingdom has utilized technology from the Xinjiang people. The media of the John Nation describes this as a rogue nation comparable to pirates attempting to exchange disaster relief for recognition as a legitimate country, yet ultimately unable to hide its rogue nature. Sitting in a lounge chair and enjoying the leg massage from Louis Fayer, Qin Shaohai leisurely listened to Lan Yue reading news from various countries' media, occasionally revealing a faint cold smile. At this moment, the serious Louis Fayer suddenly asked Mr. President, why did you name a majestic aircraft carrier the Pepixia? You wouldn't understand. This is a memory from another time and space, a memory related to aircraft carriers. At that time, many of our military enthusiasts were extremely eager for aircraft carriers, but when we finally possessed one, they expressed their joy and pride through this naming method. Qin Shaohai suddenly remembered something. By the way, where is the Pepixia aircraft carrier battle group? Lan Yue replied, Mr. President, it is currently sailing westward at a speed of 32 knots, expected to encounter the outer patrol fighters of the Little Eagle aircraft carrier battle group in 4 hours. Good, we need to give them a hard time. By the way, have the onboard aircraft changed their fuselage numbers to 81,192. I want the pilots of the Sam Nation to remember this number thoroughly, Qin Shaohai said darkly. At this moment, Louis Fayer said, Mr. President, there are only 10 minutes left until the scheduled call with the foreign minister of the Panda Nation. Do you have any instructions? Let me think. After all, this is an alien battleship. You never know when it might leave. I need to establish a new order for this planet within the limited time available. It would be worth it to be a bit extravagant. Qin Shaohai's mind raced, and he said, first, we need to establish diplomatic relations with the Panda Nation as soon as possible and welcome their diplomatic institutions and media to set up operations here. Second, we need to support their technology as much as possible, especially military technology, so we can effectively counterbalance the West. Therefore, we can appropriately invite their military delegation to visit. Tell our people we will answer any questions, and aside from the planetary fortress and existing technology, all other technologies and facilities will be open to their military. We hope this will accelerate their technological development, as having this strong support will allow us to counterbalance the Western world. Third, our Hedes Ocean Kingdom currently only has a framework. Such a vast area requires various constructions, and we need their support for infrastructure. The West rules the world by oppressing the weak with power, and I intend to break this. Do you understand, Yue? All right, Mr. President, I have noted that. 300 nautical miles west of the Hedes Ocean Kingdom, the Little Eagle aircraft carrier battle group. The piercing sound of alarms echoed across the deck as F-18s were launched into the air. The deck was bustling with some loading munitions, others directing aircraft takeoffs, and some busy transporting fighter jets from the hangar to the deck using elevators. Captain Todd, sweating profusely, stared at the display screen in the command room, which showed a dense formation of Hedes Ocean Kingdom carrier-based aircraft flying towards their air defense perimeter. The 4 F-14 Panda fighter jets that had originally been on air patrol suddenly felt the pressure, forcing the carrier to launch jets for reinforcement. In the 111th Fighter Squadron of the 15th Carrier Air Wing, Squadron Leader Peter listened to the call from his wingman in his headset. Leader, enemy aircraft are less than 10 kilometers away from us. Should we attack? Should we attack? You fool, the enemy has over 50 fighter jets. Do you want to die? So are we just going to watch them fly past us? I've already notified the mothership. What we need to do now is pretend we're not afraid. We need to maintain our course, Squadron Leader Peter said, nervously fiddling with the ejection seat switch. 10 kilometers is a mere moment for fast-moving fighter jets. Looking at the Hedes Ocean Kingdom carrier-based aircraft that flew past him with a whoosh, Squadron Leader Peter's body stiffened. He hurriedly opened the communicator. Eagle, enemy aircraft have crossed our air defense line. Repeat, enemy aircraft have crossed our air defense line, exceeding 50 in number, approaching the inner circle of air defense in a combat formation. Over. Received. Please turn and follow them. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. Hearing the command to not engage, Squadron Leader Peter let out a long breath. It was evident that the enemy was advanced third-generation fighter jets, and with their absolute numerical advantage, there was no way he would foolishly charge and to die. The carrier-based aircraft of the Hedes Ocean Kingdom accelerated past the 2 F-14s, forming the defense line, activating their afterburners, and increasing speed to 2.4 Mach, rapidly heading towards the center of the Little Eagle aircraft carrier. At this moment, alarms blared from all vessels in the Little Eagle aircraft carrier battle group, their piercing sounds striking at the hearts of the sailors. Having never experienced such a situation, the sailors lost their previous training discipline, with some running chaotically while others fumbled around. Until now, the Sam Nation had always bullied smaller nations, and never had any country's air and naval forces dared to use a large formation of advanced third-generation fighter jets to assault an aircraft carrier strike group's air defense perimeter. However, the Hedes Ocean Kingdom had not declared war on the Sam Nation, so while the atmosphere was tense, they could not open fire without understanding the enemy's strengths and weaknesses, as that would not align with the characteristics of the great Sam Nation's military. As the Little Eagle launched over 30 F-14 and F-18 fighter jets in an emergency, the Hedes Ocean Kingdom's carrier-based aircraft had already approached the inner defensive perimeter of the carrier. Each fighter jet could only pair up in twos to face the Hedes Ocean Kingdom's carrier-based aircraft, while the latter executed a stunning aerial display. The combat formation instantly began to split, with pairs maneuvering within the air defense perimeter of the Little Eagle aircraft carrier group and diving towards some escort destroyers and cruisers. The entire airspace filled with the roar of fighter jets, while the arriving F-14s and F-18s suddenly found themselves in an awkward situation. They simply could not keep up with the pace of these Hedes Ocean Kingdom carrier-based aircraft. It turned out that these aircraft were performing supersonic maneuvers at a speed of 1 Mach, which was entirely beyond the operational capacity of the F-14 and F-18O and exceeded these pilots' understanding. The elite pilots of the Sam Nation, could only awkwardly watch as these Hedes Ocean Kingdom carrier-based aircraft executed maneuvers that insulted their own defensive perimeter. Meanwhile, in the control room of the building at Five Corners, the big shots watching through satellites were collectively dumbfounded. Is this war breaking out? Why are there so many aircraft performing various maneuvers above the aircraft carrier, and why is it so intense? Why haven't we received any reports from the front? Hurry up and verify. Before long, a naval officer rushed in to report, "Sir, the Little Eagle aircraft carrier strike group requests to return early and end the mission." What is happening up front? The captain says he does not want to retire in disgrace during the last year of his career. He said that once the war begins, he has no confidence in winning. The enemy's fighter jets are too powerful, and we are already at a disadvantage. Being at a disadvantage means we can only take hits, and he does not want to be hit. This is impossible. How can a small nation confront the powerful Sam Nation? Sir, the captain says their Papixia aircraft carrier can launch over 50 carrier-based aircraft in a short time. Moreover, they flew at extremely low altitudes before entering our air defense perimeter and can perform supersonic maneuvers in a small area once above our fleet. This completely exceeds our understanding. Their technology and aircraft are at least a generation ahead of ours. If war breaks out, it will be a one-sided massacre. We don't even know if the supporting ships of their Papixia aircraft carrier strike group are equipped with powerful anti-ship weapons. For the safety of our boys and the honor of our Navy, I will order the fleet to immediately turn around and return. Esteemed Minister Sheila of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Hedes Ocean Kingdom, I am the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Panda Nation. It is a great honor to speak with you and engage in an in-depth discussion on topics of mutual interest. Respected Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Panda Nation, greetings. It is also my great honor to speak with you. This marks the first diplomatic communication between our nation and a foreign minister-level official since our establishment, ushering in a new chapter for our foreign affairs. Our Prime Minister Dharma and our President both place great importance on this communication with you. Please convey my respects to Prime Minister Dharma and your President. Allow me to express my utmost admiration for the international spirit your nation demonstrated during the 7.1 magnitude earthquake in South Asia. Thank you for your candor. Our Prime Minister Dharma is eager to establish diplomatic relations with your nation as soon as possible and invites you to be the first friendly nation to establish an embassy and related media institutions in our country. We are deeply honored by your invitation. Our side also hopes to expedite consultations on establishing embassies, consulates, and stationing media. At the same time, we would like to invite you or Prime Minister Dharma to visit our country at your convenience. Both Prime Minister Dharma and I gladly accept your invitation. Before this call, our president personally instructed me to express the friendship between our nations, and for the welfare of the world's people, the president authorizes me to invite a military delegation from your nation to visit our country. During this visit, your military industrial personnel can inspect our aircraft carrier and all naval and air force equipment. The president will also require that all military restricted zones, except for core areas, be open to your delegation. Additionally, we wish to invite your Ministry of Commerce to discuss construction projects on some of our undeveloped lands. Respected Madam Sheila, please convey to Prime Minister Dharma and your President that on behalf of all sectors of our nation, I thank your country for its trust and goodwill. I will report back and implement the points you just raised as soon as possible, hoping this opens a friendly new chapter between our nations. Excellent. We welcome your future calls. Again, our gratitude to Prime Minister Dharma and your President. After hanging up, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Panda Nation, without even pausing for a sip of water, immediately ordered his driver to prepare the car. In a certain pavilion, two elderly men conversed quietly on stone stools with only a teacup each before them. A dozen meters away, several plainclothes guards stood on alert. Chief, in all my diplomatic experience, I've never encountered a nation like this. They made no demands. Everything was about how to cooperate with us and support us. I still can't believe what I heard. Hey, don't rush. Tell me in detail, what kind of nation is this Hethys Ocean Kingdom, and what did they discuss with you on the chief? This Hethys Ocean Kingdom appeared quite suddenly. Before this, the place was merely an uninhabited island called Minamata. On October 17th, they abruptly declared the establishment of the Hethys Ocean Kingdom. Minamata was originally a volcanic island of the Dongi Nation in the Pacific. It lies 1267 kilometers west of the nearest Dongi nations, Ogasawara Islands, 1848 kilometers northwest of Tokyo, 1415 kilometers southeast of Wake Island, and 1021 kilometers southwest of the Mariana Islands. The island covers an area of 1.2 square kilometers, is triangular in shape, and is uninhabited. Since the Hethys Ocean Kingdom's declaration, the Shambhala Nation and the Dongi Nation dispatched up to 13 combat vessels, including the Kitty Hawk carrier battle group, and over 80 various aircraft, but none entered the Hethys Ocean Kingdom's exclusive economic zone. In this incident, the Shambhala Nation lost 2 F-15 fighters, and the Dongi Nation lost a Takanama-class destroyer. There were also personnel casualties. 14 died when the Dongi destroyer sank, with over 30 injured. Both Shambhala pilots crashed into the sea after exhausting fuel and were rescued by a Hethys Ocean Kingdom Navy frigate. According to intelligence from the Ministry of National Defense, the Hethys Ocean Kingdom deployed an aircraft carrier named the Mantis Shrimp 9, various destroyers and frigates, over 80 aircraft, including carrier-based planes, and possibly submarines underwater. Crucially, the Mantis Shrimp aircraft carrier has an estimated displacement exceeding 8.0 tons, no smaller than the Kitty Hawk, and can carry over 80 aircraft, making it a standard heavy carrier. We have no information on their escort vessels, but we've gathered extensive data on their aircraft, as the confrontation over the past few days has primarily occurred in the air. Their publicly identified aircraft include the Hethys Air Force's FJ-16 fighters and H-160 bombers, and the Hethys Navy's FJ-15 fighters. From their aerial confrontation with the Shambhala Nation, they likely also possess AWACS, or electronic warfare aircraft. Critically, their aircraft performance surpasses the main models of the Shambhala Air Force and Navy, ensuring their complete victory in the air skirmishes. Particularly, their H-160 bombers can easily fly into the Dongi Nation's coastal waters, perform extended ultra-low-altitude sea-skimming flights, and their instantaneous speed utterly outclasses the Dongi Air Self-Defense Force's F-15 fighters. Oddly, the global landscape might change from now on. We should try to win over this new nation. Judging by their agreement to speak with us first, they seem inclined toward our country. Your assessment is too conservative, the foreign minister said with a meaningful smile. What do you mean? Let me slowly recount the content of today's phone discussion. I guarantee you won't remain calm after hearing it. Stop being mysterious, tell me. The foreign minister of the Hethys Kingdom is a woman named Sheila. From her words, I could feel recognition and respect for our country. Authorized by Prime Minister Dharma and the President of the Hethys Kingdom, she proposed that both sides establish diplomatic relations as soon as possible, set up embassies and consulates, and station media institutions. I agree the Ministry of Foreign Affairs should expedite this. Yes, but don't rush. At the end of our call, Madam Sheila, entrusted by the President, conveyed the Hethys Kingdom President's proposals. First, invite our military industrial personnel to inspect their aircraft carrier and all naval and air force equipment, and open all military restricted zones except core areas to our military delegation. Second, invite our Ministry of Commerce to discuss construction projects on some. This is no joke. Are you sure you didn't mishear? How could I mishear something like this? Besides, I listened to the recording again. There's no mistake. Opening their crown jewel aircraft carrier, advanced naval and air weapons, and military facilities. Yes, we never believed a pie would fall from the sky, but if one truly lands on us, do we pick it up or not? Of course we pick it up. Why not? Whether it's carrier technology or these infrastructure projects, they're exactly what we urgently need. By the way, did they make any demands? No demands, just that. Oh, if you could call it a demand, they did specify that the military delegation must include Professor Zhang. What kind of nation is this Hethys Kingdom? Why would they make such a request? It seems they have many secrets. If you have no other matters, I'll arrange the diplomatic consultations between our countries. Also, I need to discuss details with the Ministry of Commerce and the Ministry of National Defense. Good, prioritize these matters. In a certain sea area of the Pacific Ocean, as night fell, the sea sparkled under the moonlight, with only the sound of waves echoing in the silence. At this moment, below 300 meters of the sea surface, a Los Angeles-class submarine was navigating in silent mode. Inside the No. 2 Torpedo Bay at the bow, a fully equipped Navy SEAL team was conducting a pre-mission briefing. It is expected to enter the designated sea area in 15 minutes. Since the opposing side claims their territorial waters extend 18 nautical miles, we will deploy the SEALs outside this distance and then use mini-submarines to infiltrate. The naval officer held up a satellite photo and said the target is a military port located in the southwest of the Kingdom of Hethys. This is the home port of the Pippi Shrimp aircraft carrier, which is in confrontation with our Little Eagle aircraft carrier. The satellite detected that this aircraft carrier disappeared after entering the dock, and we suspect they possess some technology unknown to us, so you must investigate this thoroughly. Additionally, we need close-up photographs of their carrier-based aircraft, especially the cockpit engines and air-to-air missiles. Remember, you will enter tonight. You can decide your method of action before it gets dark. Tomorrow night at 10 o'clock, the submarine will be waiting for you outside their territorial waters. Since we cannot silently evade their radar system from the air, we can only infiltrate this way. However, we are unsure of their radio detection capabilities, so the entire mission will be conducted in radio silence. Everything will depend on you. Planet Fortress Command Center. The newly appointed Chief of Joint Operations Rear Admiral Inha was observing the movements of the Navy SEAL team from Sam Country alongside Qin Shaohai in the command center. Mr. President, the onboard system has intercepted internal audio from the Los Angeles-class submarine of Sam Country, capturing details of the SEAL team's operation. Therefore, Planet Fortress has initiated comprehensive monitoring of them. Good. Inform the nearby patrol ships to avoid interfering with them. Let them work and increase the density of guard patrols near the home port of the Pippi Shrimp aircraft carrier tonight. Provide them with a quiet area that won't be patrolled, ideally a place overgrown with weeds. Additionally, arrange for a targeted artificial rain, the heavier the better. Understood, Mr. President. What about the submarine? Inha asked. Let the submarine experience some malfunctions when the SEALs begin their mission, such as colliding with an iceberg, hitting underwater peaks, leaking oil, or having seaweed tangled in the propeller. Understood, Mr. President. Los Angeles-class submarine. As the officer counted down from 3, 2, 1, the No. 2 torpedo tube began to take on water. After a short, while the outer hatch of the No. 2 torpedo tube opened and 4 team members sequentially departed the launch tube, splitting left and right to board the mini-submersibles attached to the sides of the submarine. Once the 4 team members were positioned, the propellers behind the mini-submersibles began to spin. Captain Mike, wearing a full protective mask, was the leader of this small squad. Guys, this mission could be extremely dangerous. Our F-15S and the Little Eagle aircraft carrier have returned in defeat before the enemy's strength is formidable. We may have already been compromised, but we were born for such perilous missions. If captured, don't worry, the Navy will rescue us. The team members responded, A bunch of fools. This is not Iraq or Afghanistan. They are completely unaware of the dangers, Mike thought to himself. Under the illumination of the mini-submarine's front lights, schools of fish darted past in fright, and amidst the surrounding darkness and unseen pressure, Mike increasingly felt the weight of danger. He had executed hundreds of missions, countless of which were secret infiltrations, yet today, he felt an unusual sense of unease. It had been several minutes since they left the submarine. Logically, the Kingdom of Hades, which possessed an aircraft carrier battle group and advanced fighter jets, should have sufficient means to control the waters below the sea surface. At the very least, there should be some advanced listening devices within its territorial waters, or some patrol ships or anti-ship aircraft on the surface. Yet up to now, he had encountered nothing. This mission felt like executing operations in a third-world impoverished country, which was highly abnormal. Gradually, the SEAL team approached the shore, which was desolate, resembling the undeveloped coasts of East Africa. Although there were cranes, bulldozers, excavators, and sand-blowing construction ships everywhere, not a single person was present, not even a shed for laborers. Everything was eerily silent. Captain, something's wrong. It's too quiet on the shore, one soldier reported, while using night vision goggles to observe the surroundings. Yes, something's off. It's too quiet. There isn't a single person. This is not the military port we recognize. Even as a construction site, it's abnormal. There are no workers or living facilities. It's as if it was prepared solely for us. A grave, another soldier holding an M4 remarked as he kept watch ahead. Let's move quickly. We need to get ashore. It's more dangerous here. At that moment, a patrol of soldiers appeared on the shore. Through his night vision scope, Mike noticed they were equipped with advanced gear, each wearing goggles that emitted a green glow, which was part of a comprehensive helmet system being developed by Sam Country. He didn't expect the patrol team here to already have such equipment. Conceal and maneuver towards the boulders at 2 o'clock, Mike commanded softly. Led by Mike, the team evaded several patrols and discovered what seemed to be an abandoned wasteland. There were no patrolling soldiers, and it appeared that this area had not yet been developed, allowing them to hold out until dawn. However, the heavens did not favor them. Dark clouds began to gather, followed by flashes of lightning within minutes. Before the team could prepare their rain shelters, the sky opened up and the rain transitioned from a light drizzle to a downpour in just 2 minutes. Meanwhile, Qin Shaohai aboard Planet Fortress had just finished dinner. After a lavish meal, he was now slowly selecting some exquisite dishes, contemplating a glass of red wine or an Italian after-dinner drink, living quite comfortably. Qin Shaohai glanced at the Navy SEAL team enjoying the heavy rain. Upon noticing that they were mostly equipped with rain shelters, he ordered Inha, "Do you know that North America experienced acid rain in the early 20th century? Can you handle that kind of acid rain? Mr. President, are you suggesting to add a bit of sulfur dioxide? Inha asked seriously. Precisely. Just add a little. It doesn't need to be much, just enough to corrode those damned waterproof tents slowly. Understood, Mr. President. After taking a stroll around, Qin Shaohai noticed that Inha was managing everything in an orderly manner and led his secretary Lan Yuer away. Looking at the charming Lan Yuer, Qin Shaohai couldn't help but ask Lan Yuer, is there a special place prepared for the president to take a bath, where one can see the sea and rain, something relatively quiet? Of course, Mr. President. There is a scenic tea room on the side of your bedroom. The corridor outside the tea room leads down to a bathroom specially equipped for the president, featuring a hot spring bath. Qin Shaohai, feeling somewhat tired, said, all right, take me to see it. I want to sit there for a while, have a drink, and enjoy this rain. Having endured a night of acid rain, Mike and his team finally saw the dawn of the second day. A ray of sunlight brought not only warmth, but also dispelled the night's corrosive downpour. Yet the SEAL team no longer bore any semblance of elite warriors. Their rainproof tents and cloaks had become mosquito nets. Their camouflage combat uniforms resembled fishing nets. Night vision goggles and cameras had completely shut down. Their M4 carbines had turned from black to a motley camouflage, and tactical accessories had become tattered rags. Some had red swollen skin, others could barely open one eye, while the other was equally inflamed. But that was not the worst part. The most critical issue was when they looked around and discovered dozens of people armed with cameras and microphones positioned just a few hundred meters away. This transformed Mike and his team's covert SEAL infiltration mission into the most humiliating exhibition of SEAL incompetence in history. Footage of the disheveled SEAL members being captured appeared simultaneously on major global media outlets. Meanwhile, the Los Angeles-class nuclear submarine waiting offshore for extraction was forced to surface due to a propulsion malfunction, surrounded by 4 frigates in a neat formation. Witnessing their nation's military in such a disgraceful state on television, Samoan taxpayers, especially the families of the captured SEALs and the submarine crew, took to the streets, gathering around the presidential palace, the White House, with protest signs. The White House held a closed-door meeting for an entire day, attended by the Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Director of the CIA, the Secretary of State, and the National Security Advisor. The final conclusion was that Samland would never compromise and would never allow a small nation to act recklessly. They demanded that the United Nations pass sanctions, imposing comprehensive embargoes and blockades on the Kingdom. They demanded that the Kingdom of Hedes submit a government restructuring plan within 3 days and punish the current government and military leaders. Otherwise, the Samoan military would launch limited tactical strikes against the Kingdom of Hedes. Simultaneously, they demanded that the Samoan military establish a no-fly zone over the Kingdom of Hedes within 3 days. Through its control of the United Nations, Samland pushed through unilateral sanctions despite opposition votes from Panda Nation and Bear Nation, implementing them 3 days later. Meanwhile, strategic bombers from Samland's mainland began relocating to Oahu and Guam. Multiple carrier strike groups started assembling. The Samoan Marine Corps Expeditionary Force stationed in Japan canceled leaves and began emergency musters. Maritime prepositioning ships headed toward the conflict zone, and a regiment of the 101st Air Assault Division was set to deploy to Oahu base within hours. War seemed imminent, but the epicenter of the storm, the Kingdom of Hedes, remained silent. The world watched this newly established small nation, yet for 2 consecutive days there was no news, as if the Kingdom of Hedes had been cowed by Samland. When Panda Nation's Ministry of Foreign Affairs urgently contacted the Kingdom of Hedes to relay the situation and seek its opinion, the response was that the president was taking a hot spring bath and had not yet received news from Samland. The UN Secretary-General also urgently contacted the Kingdom of Hedes Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but the reply was that the Kingdom of Hedes was not a UN member state, and therefore would neither heed UN advice nor comply with its resolutions. Just as the world was losing faith in this small nation, the Kingdom of Hedes suddenly issued a press release condemning the Prime Minister of Dongi for visiting a certain shrine. It also warned Dongi that it must promptly apologize for the incident on the 18th, when its destroyer maliciously obstructed a Hedes naval destroyer, causing a collision between the 2 warships. As nations speculated about the motives behind the Kingdom of Hedes actions, its Ministry of Foreign Affairs released another astonishing announcement: the Kingdom of Hedes is a peace-loving nation committed to the welfare of all humanity. Through thorough investigation and analysis, we believe nuclear weapons are a common enemy of human society. We are dedicated to eliminating nuclear weapons, dispelling the nuclear shadow, and ensuring nuclear powers no longer wield the sword to bully small nations. To this end, our nation has enacted an internal law prohibiting hostile nations from possessing nuclear weapons and forbidding the indiscriminate discharge of nuclear waste. We will establish a nuclear prohibition expert panel and, if necessary, initiate inspections. They've gone mad. This Kingdom of Hedes must have lost its mind under the pressure of the Samoan military buildup, was the global public's reaction to this announcement. On the same day Samland announced the embargo, John Nation and Kangaroo Nation both decided to join the sanctions against the Kingdom of Hades. John Nation would dispatch a Type 45 destroyer to the waters near the Kingdom of Hades for joint exercises with Kangaroo Nation's navy, including one amphibious assault ship and 2 frigates. The next day, Dongi Maple Leaf Nation, Chariot Nation, Kimchi Nation, U Nation, Lotus Nation, Bean Nation, Wave Nation, and Surrender Nation all announced their participation in the sanctions. On the same day, Panda Nation called for calm on all sides, urging diplomatic negotiations over military conflict. Meanwhile, its navy would proceed with the scheduled sea trials of a Type 052C destroyer, and a 44 formation of 4 H-6 bombers and 4 JH-7 fighter bombers would also deploy to the Pacific as part of its annual training plan. In the command room of the planet Fortress, Qin Shaohai repeatedly asked the same question. Although Minister of Science, Technology and Industry Terrace had given the same answer multiple times, Qin Shaohai remained uneasy. If you use the custom magnetic torque controllers for point-to-point electrification, can you truly guarantee 100 that the nuclear warheads won't detonate? Yes, Mr. President. We can deploy suborbital vehicles to disperse them. From an altitude of 200 meters, the magnetic torque controllers can perform atomic-level coverage operations on weapon systems on the ground, or even up to 300 meters underground. An atomic bomb works by exploiting the principle of heavy atomic nuclei, like uranium-235 and plutonium-239, which easily undergo fission. When bombarded by neutrons, these nuclei split into 2 medium-mass nuclei, releasing 23 neutrons and 200 megaelectron-volts of energy. With each successive reaction, the total number of fission neutrons grows exponentially, and the energy released surges, resulting in a nuclear explosion. In the nuclear detonation process, free neutrons are unstable, with an average lifespan of about 16 minutes, decaying into protons, electrons, and antineutrinos. Atomic nuclei consist of neutrons and protons. Neutrons within the nucleus are stable. Because neutrons carry no charge, they can easily penetrate atomic nuclei to initiate various nuclear reactions. What we need to do is perform isomagnetic shifting of neutrons within the atomic nucleus, essentially electrifying the neutrons. Charged neutrons are influenced by different electrical charges, losing their original function and making it harder to successfully bombard the nucleus. Even if they do, they won't eject further neutrons, thus preventing the nuclear weapon from detonating. Alright, I don't understand it anyway, but I'll trust you for now. Let's start the first step: launch the neutering plan. Find every single nuclear weapon Samland possesses, on its homeland, overseas, and on military platforms. Not one missing. Yes, Mr. President, replied the Minister of Defense, who may or may not have understood the science, but was fully cooperative with the operational orders. Just as Qin Shaohai was orchestrating the operation to neuter Samland's nuclear arsenal, the cornerstone of its hegemony, the Samoan press secretary was holding a news conference on the final day of the 3-day ultimatum. The Kingdom of Hades has still not responded. This is an affront to all peace-loving people worldwide. Samland has always upheld the ideals of world peace, leading by example in adhering to international rules, the UN Charter, and the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. However, the Kingdom of Hades' series of atrocities conflicts with our existing values and worldview. For the sake of world peace and the long-term stability of the Earth, Samland will resolutely join its allies in destroying this despotic and hegemonic little nation. On the evening of October 24, 2005, it was the last day of the 3-day ultimatum issued by the Sam country. Louis Fear, the spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Hades Ocean Kingdom, appeared at precisely 6 p.m. each day with a cold expression and a tight-fitting uniform. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Hades Ocean Kingdom is authorized to release the following information following consultations between the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Defense, and upon approval by Premier Damo, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will henceforth implement a blacklist system for unfriendly nations. The first batch of countries on the blacklist include Sam country, Dongi country, John country, Kangaroo country, Maple Leaf country, Chariot country, Pickled Vegetable country, U country, Lotus country, Beet country, Wave country, and Surrender country. In response to the unfriendly nations blacklist, the Hades Ocean Kingdom will take the following actions and countermeasures. 1. Prohibit official personnel from these countries from entering the territory, airspace, and territorial waters of the Hades Ocean Kingdom. 2. Prohibit enterprises from these countries from purchasing resources, financial products, technological products, patented products, and military products from the Hades Ocean Kingdom for the next 20 years. 3. Prohibit these countries from obtaining the technology and resources of the Hades Ocean Kingdom through third parties. 4. Prohibit the procurement of any goods from blacklisted countries. 5. Prohibit blacklisted countries from accessing international organizations and internet systems managed by the Hades Ocean Kingdom for the next 20 years. Watching Fear's alluring figure on the display, Qin Shaohai suddenly turned his head and asked Lan Yuer, "Will help me evaluate the currencies of various countries around the world, especially the anti-counterfeiting levels of banknotes?" Additionally, develop a new type of currency that cannot be forged based on existing mainstream banknotes, and this technology must be such that only our printing presses can produce it. I want to monopolize the minting technology. This technology shouldn't be difficult. I've noted it down, President. In Zhonghai, oldly have you managed to get through to the Hetus Kingdom on the phone? No, their Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Premier Damo have been in meetings, and the President is actually soaking in a hot spring. Interesting, this is truly interesting. The world's strongest power united with Western nations imposes a suffocating blockade and military threat, yet this president still has the leisure to soak in a hot spring. Should we try contacting them through other means? No need. Don't you see the problem? They possess military technology surpassing that of the Sam country, and they have been constantly provoking tensions these past few days. If the Hetus Kingdom didn't want to escalate matters, they wouldn't repeatedly challenge them. Under such intense pressure from the Sam country, they have made no response whatsoever, while simultaneously pressuring the Dongi country. And this president is still soaking in a hot spring. What does this imply? It implies they are fully confident. Besides, you saw the blacklist announcement tonight. It's a clear indication that the Hetus Kingdom is not afraid of them, and even seeks a heated confrontation. If the call can't get through, then don't bother. Let's sit back and watch a good show together. You make a valid point. Then what about our warships and aircraft? Asked the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Proceed as originally planned, don't be affected. Yes. Oh, by the way, oldly, what is their president's name? They have never announced the president's name, nor have they ever voluntarily mentioned it. We haven't felt it appropriate to ask directly. In fact, not just us, but governments worldwide are eager to know the name of the Hetus Kingdom's president. All right, no rush. Good food is worth the wait, and a good show is worth the anticipation. Also, the first batch of personnel from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has been assembled, totaling 11 people, including 2 journalists, along with a military delegation of 103 members, all prepared. Given that tomorrow is the first day of the Sam country's blockade deadline, should we wait a bit longer or depart as planned tomorrow? That is a question. Since everything is ready, let's depart as planned. They've offered us such a generous gift, we can't lack the courage to accept it. Understood. They'll notify them to prepare shortly. All right, go ahead. They'll need to call the president of the Bear country later. At a certain Air Force base in North China in the Liberation Auditorium. Xiao Wang, why are you carrying so many things? An elderly man in civilian clothes smiled warmly at a young soldier sitting at the edge of the auditorium. Director, I'm not sure what to bring. This is my first time going abroad and my first encounter with cutting-edge weaponry. I want to collect as much information as possible, but I don't know what's essential, so I ended up bringing everything. Child, don't be nervous. They'll have everything you need there. The note is said to bring only personal items. These are too heavy. With so many people, the plane can't carry all this. Better to streamline. All right, Director. They'll put them back after the meeting. At that moment, a naval officer was sitting in the first row of the auditorium, resting with his eyes closed. Suddenly, another officer in the same Navy uniform entered through a side door, gently nudged the resting officer, and the two left in silent understanding, moving to an unoccupied spot in the back row. Zhaozhong, you're aware of the situation, so I won't elaborate. There's only one matter I'd like you to pay attention to. Please go ahead. This military delegation is quite large, as you can see. Elites from all branches of the military are present, and even the Military Science Academy and various defense research institutes have sent representatives. This demonstrates the level of friendliness the other side has towards our country. On this trip, besides learning from them, observing advanced weaponry, and absorbing their combat doctrines and theories, I have an additional task for you. This task is not mandatory. Proceed based on the situation. The Hetus Kingdom specifically invited only you by name. There must be a reason for this, and we want to know what it is. Since their president personally extended the invitation, we suspect he will meet with you. During your conversation, try to ascertain why you were singled out for an invitation. I understand. Just then, a sharp command of attention cut through the murmurs in the auditorium, and everyone quickly returned to their seats. October 25, 2005, Planetary Fortress Command and Control Center. On the first day of the blockade and embargo, Qin Shaohai arrived early at the control center. At that moment, Galaxy Chief of Staff of the Joint Operations Directorate was reporting the latest developments to Qin Shaohai. Mr. President, the special aircraft carrying the Panda Country delegation has taken off on schedule and is expected to land at Damo International Airport in our capital Zhongjing City in approximately 4 hours. As per your instructions, 4 of our Air Force FJ-20 fighter jets, supported by 2 tanker aircraft, will provide full escort for the delegation's plane. Currently, the FJ-20s are circling in standby mode outside the airspace over the East Sea. Good. Inform the air formation to ensure the safety of the delegation's aircraft. If any other country engages in aerial provocation or obstruction, shoot them down directly without reporting back. Also order the standby squadrons to be fully prepared. In case of an emergency, they are to take off immediately without seeking further instructions. Yes, Mr. President. What about other aspects of the situation? Although today is the first day of the blockade and embargo, the skies and seas remain relatively quiet. The armed forces led by the SAM country are at least over 1,000 kilometers away from us. If they intend to establish a no-fly zone, they cannot rely solely on their air force. They will have to deploy aircraft carriers. However, the nearest aircraft carrier is still 3 days away from us. Therefore, the actual no-fly zone and embargo will likely begin in earnest 3 days from now. Good. Regardless of when they arrive, we must commence Operation Castration today. Ensure that all of the SAM country's nuclear weapons are destroyed at the first opportunity. Not a single one is to remain. Come, let me see how the SAM country is blocking our mobilized aircraft carrier fleet. After Qin Shaohai sat in the command chair, he instructed the chief of the Joint Operations Department Inha to open the electronic mission status map and project it onto the large curved screen in front. Mr. President, the aircraft carrier formations from the SAM country currently advancing towards us are as follows. The USS Ronald Reagan has set sail from Norfolk Naval Station on October 24th, heading south through the Panama Canal, and will join the strike group at Oahu before proceeding to our waters. The USS George Washington Strike Group departed from Yokosuka Naval Base on October 23rd, making it the closest carrier group to us. It is expected to commence its blockade mission against us in 2 days. The USS Nimitz is expected to depart from its home port at Everett Naval Base on October 25th, while later joining the strike group at Oahu before heading to our waters. On October 25th, the USS Carl Vinson Strike Group is sailing from the Indian Ocean towards us, expected to pass through the Malacca Strait tomorrow. The USS Ronald Reagan has just completed its overseas deployment and returned to San Diego Naval Base with indications that the SAM country Navy is preparing to cancel the routine maintenance of this aircraft carrier, which was scheduled for 2 months, and is planning to regroup the strike force in 5 days to head towards us. At that time, 5 carrier strike groups will surround us along with the vessels and aircraft of their allies. There will be more than 5 aircraft carriers, 1 amphibious assault ship, 9 Ticonderoga-class cruisers, 14 destroyers, including Burke-class, and 8 attack submarines. Meanwhile, the number of SAM country's Air Force F-15 fighters stationed at Guam has exceeded 120, and there are currently 24 B-52 strategic bombers. Oahu is also home to about 300 F-16 fighters and 150 F-15 fighters from the SAM country's naval and air forces. Approximately 30 B-1B Lancer bombers from the SAM country's west coast have also been placed on standby. We have just received news that the SAM country is preparing to test launch a Minuteman missile in the South Pacific, which carries a conventional warhead. Could we still have time? How is the production of our second aircraft carrier, the Crab? Mr. President, the hull of the Crab has been completed by 40. Considering the weapon systems, power systems, electronic systems, propulsion systems, life support systems, and catapult systems, it is expected to take another 3 months. We definitely won't make it to this battle. Currently, we only have 12 destroyers, 14 frigates, and just over 70 fighter jets, along with 6 nuclear submarines. Compared to the forces of the SAM country, the gap is still quite large. We must use our trump card, Qin Shaohai said with a cold smile. Mr. President, are you referring to the HF-26, which is a replica of the DF-26, and the HF-41, which is a replica of the DF-41? But we have only produced 17 HF-26 and 6 HF-41, which does not provide realistic deterrence. Haha, you don't understand. 23 is already a bit too many. If you don't say it, I won't say it. Who would know we only have 23? Qin Shaohai said confidently. This is called deterrence. Mr. President, the castration plan is ready and can start at any time. At this moment, Lan Yuer and Defense Minister Lin Peter walked over to report. Good launch in 1 hour. I want to see it live. Ew, I've never seen a rocket launch up close before. Yuer, you notify Louis Fayer to announce our satellite launch mission to the outside world according to plan. After saying that, he pulled Lin Peter out. No one noticed why the emergency news from the Kingdom of Hethys could interrupt news broadcasts around the world. Almost everyone thought this was information received by various television stations. Every time the alluring and cold Louis Fayer appeared on the television screen, she could instantly attract the attention of men worldwide, so that every evening at 6 these men would sit obediently in front of their TVs, waiting for the appearance of this ice beauty. As for what she said, that was left to the politicians of various countries to worry about. We just enjoyed her slightly parted red lips and the habitual gesture of flipping her hair while speaking. Emergency report from the Kingdom of Hethys. Our Ministry of Science and Technology plans to conduct a routine satellite launch in 1 hour. We will focus on launching 6 low Earth orbit satellites and 4 geostationary satellites. We urge all nations not to speculate too much. Our satellite launch is a normal measure for the peaceful use of space, part of our plan to develop space technology. Meanwhile, we will announce the satellite orbit data shortly and hope that the 4 SAM countries' spy satellites won dongy count. Once the news was released, media outlets around the world urgently interrupted their regular commentary programs and news, focusing their attention and commentary on the Kingdom of Hethys' dense satellite launch. However, the spotlight was not on the satellite launch itself, but on the fact that the satellites launched by the Kingdom of Hethys would occupy the orbits of other countries' satellites. This was a first in human space exploration. No government or company has ever requested other countries' satellites to make room for their own upcoming launches. The Kingdom of Hethys is either powerful enough to ignore other nations or utterly foolish. This was the general view of the media in the John country. A country that has yet to integrate into civilized society is always the enemy of civilized society. Only by eliminating such countries can we restore peace, freedom, and fairness and justice to the world. The SAM country's military acted as a knight of freedom during World War I and World War II. They once defeated the Nazis of the past and will also defeat the current Nazis. This is the perspective of the SAM country's media. Nanny, how can such a country exist? Why should we allow the Dongi people's satellites to change orbits? This is the orbit we have long occupied. For a rogue nation that seizes our islands and wants to seize our satellite orbits, we should firmly stand under the banner of the SAM country and jointly attack it. This is the perspective of the Dongi country's media. Why didn't the West grab our pickled cabbage country's satellite orbit? Is this looking down on us? We also have satellites. We must strongly protest against this neglect of our pickled cabbage country's interests. We must firmly heed the call of the SAM country and be ready to unleash our cosmic nation's wrath on this Kingdom of Hethys at any time. This is the media of a certain major country. Just as media outlets around the world were intensively discussing the Kingdom of Hethys satellite launch, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Hethys once again interrupted the normal programming of various news media with an urgent notice. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Hethys, at the request of the Ministry of Defense of the Kingdom of Hethys, hereby issues the following urgent notice. The Ministry of Defense of the Kingdom of Hethys will conduct a test launch of strategic missiles 1 hour later in the waters near Tasmania, the waters near Diego Garcia in the southern Indian Ocean, and the waters near Vancouver in the Maple Leaf Country. The coordinates of the landing area will be announced later. Please passing ships and aircraft take note to avoid risks. October 25, 2005 is a day worth remembering in the news industry because on this day a series of shocking news events unfolded and various events took place that shocked the world. The weight and stimulation of the news overwhelmed major media outlets on this day, and various interviews and commentary critics and senior military journalists from around the world slowly began to describe this emerging ocean kingdom with a single phrase: the Kingdom of Hethys is constantly testing the brink of annihilation. As 10 simple launch vehicles ascended 9 orbital and suborbital spacecraft sped toward their respective targets after destroying the American, Japanese, and Australian satellites in space that refused to alter their orbits, these 9 craft would eject magnetic moment controllers toward predetermined objectives. These controllers would gradually accelerate to Mach 20, deeply disintegrating upon nearing their targets, and through widespread dispersion, transform the magnetic moments of neutrons within nuclear warheads, altering the charge of at least 80 of the neutrons. Charged neutrons would lack the kinetic energy to bombard atomic nuclei, preventing chain reactions, and thus neutering the nuclear arsenal of the SAM country. After deep disintegration, the magnetic moment controllers were reduced to the size of a proton, evading all detection methods on Earth. No sensor on existing nuclear weapons could detect such neutron level changes, leaving the SAM country completely unaware upon mission completion. Over the East China Sea, a military delegation's chartered aircraft, 4 escorting J-11 fighters, separated from the plane above the East China Sea. Before returning to base, the J-11 pilot reminded the charter pilot, 0707, our escort mission is complete. Please ensure safety en route, keep the transponder on, avoid military installations as much as possible, and guarantee the safety of the military elites. 0404 received. Thank you for the reminder. We will deliver the experts safely. At that moment, another voice broke into the communication system. Air Force J-11 escort. This is the Hethys Ocean Kingdom Air Force JF-20 escort aircraft number 81192. We have 4 escort fighters and 2 tankers. From now on, we will take over the escort of the charter aircraft. Please return safely. Please return safely. No further verification or explanation was needed. At that moment, tears welled in the eyes of both the J-11 pilots and the charter pilot, for they understood the significance of that number. This number was synonymous with allies, signifying that these were their own people. With their relay escort, the J-11S could confidently return to base. A silence of over 10 seconds felt like an eternity. Finally, composing himself, the J-11 lead pilot replied, "Received 81192. Thank you for coming. We now transfer the mission to you and will return shortly. Wishing you a smooth and safe landing. Received J-11 escort. Rest assured we will safely escort the charter aircraft to the Hethys Ocean." Inside the cabin, the military delegation and the advance team from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs were unaware of the radio exchanges. But then a gasp drew everyone's attention to an unforgettable sight outside the windows. On each side was an aircraft with a sleek, elongated fuselage far larger than the J-11S and other fighters. Its body was a deep, dark green with silver-gray edges. It featured a single-seat twin engines, fully movable twin tails, a DSI bump inlet canards with a sharp arch leading edge in a canard delta layout, a diamond-shaped nose and fuselage, outward slanting vertical tails, serrated landing gear doors, and no external weapons. From the first sight of these aircraft, the delegation members could not tear their eyes away. Some military experts pulled out notebooks to sketch, while others began discussing whether such aerodynamic layout and shape were designed for radar stealth. Though the Ministry of Foreign Affairs staff were not well-versed in military equipment, they could still appreciate the beauty of these aerodynamically designed fighters. But none of that mattered until someone shifting their gaze from the aircraft's exterior suddenly noticed the number painted on its side, 81,192. A sudden shiver ran through them, tears brimming in their eyes. Everyone look. This is our plane, our plane. It's a naval aviation fighter. Perhaps hearing the commotion in the cabin or feeling the need to introduce the escort to prevent panic, the pilot announced, "Dear experts, the fighters flanking our charter are escort fighters from the Heathis Ocean Kingdom Air Force. They will protect us all the way to the Heathis Ocean Kingdom." As the formation neared the Miyako Strait, 2 F-15 fighters from the Naha Air Base flew toward the charter group. Although the charter and its 2 escorts showed no unusual behavior, the 2 high-altitude FJ-20 escorts had already focused their attention on the 2 approaching F-15s from the Eastern E country's Air Self-Defense Force. Air Self-Defense Force F-15 fighters, we detect your 2 aircraft approaching our escort formation. State your intentions and maintain a safe distance of 100 kilometers from our formation, or you will be shot down without warning. Repeat, maintain a safe distance of 100 kilometers from our formation, or you will be shot down without warning. Unknown formation, unknown formation. This is an Air Self-Defense Force patrol aircraft. Your formation has entered our air defense identification zone and is dangerously approaching our airspace. We are ordered to investigate. Please submit to identification within our visual range and follow our designated flight path. Do not approach our airspace. Do not approach our airspace. Air Self-Defense Force F-15 fighters, this is your final warning. This is your final warning. You are approaching our 100-kilometer warning zone. You are approaching our 100-kilometer warning zone. Turn away immediately, or you will be shot down. Repeat, turn away immediately, or you will be shot down. As the 2 F-15s entered the 100-kilometer safety zone, the 2 JF-20s accelerated forward and locked onto each F-15. Their underbellies opened, and each launched a long-range advanced air-to-air missile. Only then did the F-15s warning systems activate, but the pilots had no idea where the missiles came from. Despite desperate evasive maneuvers, 2 explosions and small bursts of flame confirmed the F-15s were precisely hit. Charter pilot, this is the Heathis Ocean Kingdom Air Force escort formation. 2 Self-Defense Force F-15 fighters entered the 100-kilometer safety zone without authorization and have been shot down by us. The airspace within 200 kilometers around the charter is now secure. Maintain your heading and ensure communication with our formation. The message from the cockpit left the pilot profoundly shaken. Received. Thank you for the escort, Heathis Ocean Kingdom Air Force. As the charter pilot marveled, 2 air-to-ground missiles roared past the right side of the charter, descending from above and streaking into the distance. Seeing this, the pilot immediately called out, "Heathis Ocean Kingdom Air Force escort formation, I have detected 2 missiles rapidly passing by. Please confirm, please confirm." A reply came through the headset, "Do not worry. Our escort formation detected 2 ground-based air defense systems activating with their radars, conducting dangerous scans. Our formation is at the edge of their missile range. As a precaution, the escort formation needs to destroy them preemptively." Hearing this, the charter pilot was too stunned to respond. In the command center of the planet Fortress, Qin Shaohai gazed at the peripheral sea conditions displayed on a section of the curved electronic situation screen. The targets marked in yellow by the warship's intelligence center were non-friendly forces approaching the 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone. After an operator's explanation, Qin Shaohai learned that 2 Los Angeles-class attack submarines, the USS Cheyenne SSN-773 and the USS Dallas SSN-770, had been detected underwater south of the Heathis Ocean Kingdom. Approximately 80 nautical miles behind them, an Ohio-class strategic nuclear submarine, the USS Alabama SSBN-731, was at launch depth. This submarine was equipped with 24 Trident D5 submarine-launched ballistic missiles in vertical launch tubes, along with 4 533mm torpedo launch systems armed with 48 Malawian Quachas wire-guided torpedoes for self-defense. Simultaneously, 6 B-52 strategic bombers in aerial patrol escorted by 24 F-15 fighters were detected in the airspace south of the Heathis Ocean Kingdom, approximately 700 kilometers from the 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone. To the west of the Hedes Ocean Kingdom, the Birdie aircraft carrier strike group was rapidly approaching at a speed of 24 knots, positioned 900 nautical miles from the exclusive economic zone. To the east, near Oahu Island, a small fleet consisting of one Ticonderoga-class cruiser and two Burke-class destroyers was advancing at 22 knots, about 650 nautical miles from the 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone. In the air, 4 B-1B Lancer strategic bombers were detected, escorted by 6 F-14 Tomcat fighters, with an early warning aircraft trailing behind. Mr. President, these are the confirmed first-wave forces of the SAM country's military operations against our nation. The second echelon is farther away, said Lieutenant General Lynn Pete, the Minister of Defense. Pete, if the Ohio-class submarine launches D-5 ballistic missiles at us, what is our probability of interception? Qin Xiaohai asked uneasily. Mr. President, with the current weapons technology on Earth, they pose no threat to us, Lynn Pete replied, coldly standing upright. That puts my mind at ease. These pieces of equipment left quite an impression on me as a pseudo-military enthusiast, Qin Xiaohai said, feeling a wave of relief. He straightened his back, mimicking Lynn Pete, and commanded, have the ship's intelligence system take control of the Ohio-class submarine. Open all 24 launch tubes. Fire 20 missiles toward us and 4 toward the Birdies, escorting Ticonderoga-class cruiser and Burke-class destroyer. Let's see if our magnetic controller can destroy these nuclear missiles while forcing them to maneuver evasively, clearing the path for the special aircraft. Understood, Mr. President. How much time until our own ballistic missile test launch? 37 minutes, Mr. President. What a coincidence. Have Phil prepare a speech draft. Announced that the SAM country, upon hearing about our ballistic missile test, attempted to launch a preemptive strike against us. Therefore, we have decided to replace the warheads on all 3 conventional ballistic missiles with nuclear ones after the test and impose sanctions on the SAM country's nuclear weapons industry. Understood, Mr. President. Now let's begin. Show me how formidable this ship's intelligence system truly is. Mr. President, real-time footage will appear on screens 7 and 8 of the curved electronic situation display, an operator said. Seconds later, the live feed from the command center of the Ohio-class strategic nuclear submarine, the USS Alabama, appeared before Qin Xiaohai. Witnessing the chaos within the submarine's control room, he realized the ship's system had successfully taken command. In just a few seconds, it seized control of the world's most advanced strategic missile submarine. They'll have to plan something more thrilling in the future, or I'd be wasting this incredible warship. On another screen, the 24 launch tubes opened sequentially. A sudden inspiration struck Qin Xiaohai as he asked, if we initiate simultaneous launch, will all 24 missiles eject together or at intervals? Mr. President, they will eject at intervals, an operator quickly replied. As a seasoned pseudo-military enthusiast, Qin Xiaohai knew that nuclear submarines launch missiles sequentially. Yet in his mind, he envisioned forcing the submarine to sink itself. With this thought, Qin Xiaohai countered, can the command be modified to eject all 24 missiles simultaneously? I want to see if this 18000-ton toy can withstand sinking. Command entered simultaneous launch of all 24 missiles. The system immediately accepted Qin Xiaohai's directive. On the screen, as all 24 launch tubes opened, the faces of the submarine crew aboard the USS Alabama grew increasingly frantic. Some began smashing control panels in rage, while others tore at wires. When the countdown on the display reached 1, both screens before Qin Xiaohai turned blindingly white. The Planet Fortress ship system switched the feed back to the surface, revealing all 24 missiles breaking the water simultaneously. In that instant, the missiles interfered with each other's trajectories. Several tilted upon emergence, igniting their engines at an angle, but onboard computers quickly corrected their paths into vertical climbs. As thrust increased, the missiles rapidly shrank and vanished from view. Though aware that the unfortunate USS Alabama was likely doomed, Qin Xiaohai still wished to witness the submarine's dire state firsthand. As the missiles re-entered the atmosphere and approached the Planet Fortress outer shield, the ship's laser weapons systematically destroyed them. Qin Xiaohai watched intently as each missile exploded, and with the final blast devoid of a nuclear detonation, his relief was complete. Then came the spectacle of humanity's first ballistic missile strike against surface vessels guided by the Planet Fortress intelligence system. Despite the Ticonderoga-class cruiser and Burke-class destroyer desperately launching standard SM-2 anti-air missiles, all failed. At speeds exceeding Mach 10, the 4 escort ships of the Birdie were effortlessly pierced. No colossal mushroom clouds emerged, but the kinetic impact of immense velocity triggered massive explosions, shattering the ship's keels upon impact. The hulls fractured at the strike points, sinking downward before being thrust upward by subsequent blasts. Within minutes, the broken vessels vanished beneath the waves, leaving only scattered debris on. The sailors and pilots aboard the Birdie aircraft carrier, who had witnessed the entire ballistic missile test against surface ships, stood stunned. The once formidable Birdie strike group had in mere minutes been reduced to the solitary carrier itself. The ship's captain agonized over a painful dilemma. Must I order another turn to disengage from battle? Twice in 1 month fleeing from the battlefield. How will future histories record this? How will the media judge me the most successful escape captain in Sam country's history? Yet not fleeing likely means being sunk by these hypersonic ballistic missiles. Our standard anti-air missiles are useless, and even the phalanx CIWS offers no defense. If that's the case, I have only one path left. Having made his decision, the captain ordered a course reversal and retreat just 3 minutes after the 4 escort ships had sunk. On October 25th, when Ohio-class strategic nuclear submarines suddenly launched a dense salvo of Trident D5 ballistic missiles, the Voronezh-DM dual-frequency scanning radars located in the Irkutsk region and the city of Yeniseisk, along with the Oko early warning satellites in space, detected the missile launches. They immediately reported to the emergency duty officer of the Ministry of Defense's Nuclear Defense Directorate, who then urgently briefed the Kremlin and ordered the nuclear missile forces to enter the highest state of combat readiness. Almost simultaneously, the ground-based long-range radar stations of the Panda Nation also detected this abnormal dense launch in the Central Pacific. Similarly, the ground-based radar stations and space-based missile early warning satellites under the North American Aerospace Defense Command also issued alerts to the Battle Management Command Control and Communications System, known as the BMC-3 system. However, the U.S. military remained utterly bewildered from start to finish. Although the launch originated from one of its own Ohio-class strategic nuclear submarines, this launch was unauthorized. There was no launch code input, no mission coordinate information on file, and it was ultimately confirmed that this passive launch was a hard launch, meaning the missiles were forcibly fired without authorization codes or level directives. Although various nations quickly calculated that the missiles' predicted impact points did not fall within their territories, this incident caused a massive uproar among the major nuclear powers. After identifying the launch source as a U.S. ballistic missile nuclear submarine, major nuclear states, including China, Russia, and Western Europe, all contacted the United States to inquire about the cause. While global attention was fixed on the nuclear missile launches, the perpetrators' focus was on the detonations of these missiles. Since none of the 24 Trident D5 missiles underwent a normal nuclear explosion, the U.S. Department of Defense and the North American Aerospace Defense Command successively convened all relevant military officials and experts for discussions. If U.S. nuclear missiles were unable to detonate properly for some reason, it would be catastrophic for Uncle Sam. If the failure of these missiles to undergo nuclear detonation garnered widespread attention, would nuclear-armed nations like the Panda Nation and the Bear Nation launch a preemptive nuclear strike against the U.S.? Their nuclear warheads could easily annihilate the United States 28 times over. Meanwhile, the mighty U.S. could only symbolically fire those thousands of fireworks akin to a young American woman being overpowered and violated by a burly man while weakly pounding his chest with her tiny fists. The thought sent chills down the spines of U.S. military and government high officials. Some were already secretly texting their families, telling them to grab their luggage and children and flee to the countryside. As the old saying goes, misfortunes never come singly. Just as the world was captivated by this abnormal U.S. ballistic missile launch, the wildly reckless Heathis Ocean Kingdom issued yet another urgent announcement. On October 25th, at 1:01 a.m., our nation was attacked by ballistic missiles from a U.S. Navy Ohio-class strategic nuclear submarine. The missiles were confirmed to be submarine-launched Trident D5 ballistic missiles. Our nation detected a total of 24 missile launches, of which 20 entered our air defense system's control zone and were subsequently all intercepted and destroyed. 4 missiles deviated from our defense zone, veered westward, and coincidentally struck 4 escort ships of the U.S. Navy's Little Bird carrier strike group. As of this announcement, those 4 vessels have already sunk. Our nation is unclear as to why the United States would attack its own navy while simultaneously attacking us. However, we express our outrage at the U.S. wanton use of strategic missiles to attack us. We are perplexed by the U.S. inhumane act of attacking its own warships. We are shocked by the ultra-high precision of the U.S. submarine-launched ballistic missiles in striking naval vessels. And we sympathize with the extremely low yield of the ballistic missiles used against us. In retaliation for the U.S. ballistic missile attack, our nation intends to change our planned 3 ballistic missile test launches to 5. The 2 new targets are San Diego Naval Base and Clear Air Force Base. This is merely a routine launch and a small-scale retaliatory exercise in line with international conventions. It will not affect the civilized world in any way, and we request that relevant nations refrain from overinterpreting this action. The United States currently has no time to engage in a war of words with the Heathis Ocean Kingdom, nor to promote freedom, democracy, and civilization. They are now intensely focused on studying why the missiles failed to undergo nuclear detonation. However, nations such as the Eastern barbarians Kimchi, Fey Monkey Kangaroo, Maple Leaf Viet, and Nun, who had been eagerly observing the situation with bated breath, saw a golden opportunity to pledge their loyalty to the United States. The world's most powerful nation had launched a missile attack on a small, newly established maritime kingdom, and this insolent little nation dared to retaliate by launching missiles at the U.S. homeland. This was no longer just flirting with death, it was a 100% suicidal act, a global absurdity. By leaping onto Uncle Sam's war chariot, they could not only gain international exposure, but also demonstrate their loyalty to the U.S. more clearly than any amount of threat-mongering could achieve. Crucially, this was a surefire no-lose proposition. As the world's first and only superpower, the United States holds an unshakable lead in military, technological, and industrial strength, far surpassing any other nation. Under these circumstances, there was simply no possibility of defeat, especially with the backing of NATO and alliance encompassing the strongest Western nations. There was no chance of losing and no better time to latch onto this powerful patron. Without delay, these nations began condemning the Heathis Ocean Kingdom, announcing expanded sanctions across military and civilian domains, and declaring that they would dispatch warships to participate in a blockade. Most outrageously, several nations announced that they would place Heathis Ocean Kingdom's current Prime Minister Damo on their terrorist organization list. Fortunately, President Qin Shaohai had not revealed his name, otherwise he would have been the one branded a terrorist. After all, terrorist attacks and terrorists have been the trendiest topics in recent years. Hours later, the global media were frantically reporting on this series of insane events. The internet was flooded with various speculations, some true and some false. However, a few rational commentators or official accounts recognized the stark reality: the world seemed to be inexorably marching toward nuclear annihilation. Yet no matter how wise or rational the commentators, military strategists, or politicians were, none dared to label it as World War III. Even if the situation spiraled out of control and led to open conflict, it would hardly qualify as a third world war. At best, it would be a coalition led by the United States bullying a nascent maritime nation, much like their campaigns against Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, and Grenada. This would be at most a U.S.-led counterterrorism operation. At precisely 1400 on October 25th, the successive launch of 5 HF-41 missiles, one after another, heralded the near-complete depletion of the Kingdom of Hetis' entire strategic ballistic missile arsenal, leaving only a single sample remaining. The missiles were launched from the Fire God Air Force Base in the Fire Province of the Hetis Island, located in the northwest of the Kingdom of Hetis. The area was now desolate, with only 5 makeshift launch sites hastily erected on a simple flat patch of ground amidst the rubble, using missile launch vehicles. Yet from this meager Quasi-Air Force Base, 5 HF-41 missiles carrying conventional warheads soared into the sky, one after another, trailing long dragons of fire. The newly established Hetis International News Agency broadcast the entire event live. The Panda Kingdom Television, which had secured the exclusive rebroadcast rights, also aired it nationwide for the first time. Foreign media outlets scrambled to contact their correspondents and agencies attempting to secure broadcast rights. Failing that, they rebroadcast the television feed, albeit with a few seconds delay, which still counted as a form of live coverage. Thus, people across the globe witnessed the awe-inspiring live launch of intercontinental ballistic missiles for the first time. The first 3 missiles targeted the sea, and with 24 ballistic missiles already launched that day, they drew little attention. However, the final 2 were aimed at San Diego and Clear Air Force Base, prompting local media in the Sam Kingdom to seize the opportunity. They set up live broadcasting equipment near both military installations. What they first captured, however, was a massive traffic jam stretching along the highways, a congestion caused by a mix of military and civilian vehicles. Whether it was the main roads leading west or north from San Diego Naval Base, or the 2 commuter highways, and 1 military-exclusive route from Clear Air Force Base, all were clogged without exception. It seemed that not only civilians feared the missiles, but military personnel as well. The North American Aerospace Defense Command had long deployed over 30 F-15 and F-14 fighter jets armed with air-to-air missiles for aerial patrol over both locations. Meanwhile, Patriot surface-to-arm missile systems on the ground and several Aegis destroyers armed with Standard 2 missiles in the nearby waters stood ready. Even the Phalanx close-in weapon system, which would prove utterly ineffective, rotated incessantly. As the warheads re-entered the atmosphere, streaking like meteors with long tails visible to the naked eye, and as they appeared on the base's radar screens, an officer in the air defense control room could not help but curse, "WTF liars, absolute liars. This isn't 1 warhead, it's 4. No, it's 4. 5. There's another one faintly visible. Speed Mach 23. Radar cannot lock. We're nearing the intercept limit. What do we do? Sir, what do we do? No choice. Launch missiles at these 5 targets. Fire the missiles now, hurry." The commanding officer shouted. During the final dive phase of the JF-41 intercontinental ballistic missile, which carried 4 decoy warheads, the warheads released the decoys upon aligning with the target. The decoys fell freely under gravity. Meanwhile, the actual warhead accelerated further upon separation. At that moment, over 40 Patriot missiles were launched from various directions around the base, while Standard 2 anti-air missiles from the sea arced towards the target. However, the warhead, traveling at over Mach 20, arrogantly ignored these interceptors and struck the target with precision. Both missiles aimed at the military bases successfully hit warehouses. The warehouses contained only aircraft under maintenance and were largely unoccupied at the time. Although the missile attacks caused no casualties, the panic preceding their arrival resulted in the deaths of 3 civilians and injuries to 4 soldiers and over 30 others, all due to traffic accidents caused by chaotic evacuations. Planet Fortress Command Center, Mr. President, after confirmation, all carrier strike groups heading towards our country have halted their advance except for the Little Bird, which is returning. The nuclear submarines underwater have also begun their return. The strategic bombers and their escort aircraft in the air are likewise returning. However, the SAM Kingdom has not issued any public statement. After the HF-41 strategic missiles struck the 2 land-based military targets, the SAM Kingdom's nuclear missile forces did not enter a state of high alert. Everything remains normal. Aside from their navy returning, the navies of other nations continue to sail towards our waters. The special aircraft carrying the Panda Kingdom's military delegation has entered our airspace and is about to land at Dharma International Airport in Jongjing City. I'll quickly arrange a shuttle. Have Prime Minister Dharma personally welcome them. Yes, Mr. President. I will arrange it immediately. Dharma International Airport, Jongjing City. This was a hastily constructed airstrip. Due to time constraints, only one runway, a portion of an international standard terminal, and a standard control tower had been completed. Not far away stood a slightly taller military control tower, clearly indicating this was a dual-use airport. Aside from the runway and tower, the surroundings were stark and barren. Currently, the entire airport was guarded by a single marine company and a mere 20-odd police officers. Airport staff were nowhere to be seen. The occasional fuel truck and baggage cart that passed by were presumably prepared for this special aircraft. Urban construction in Jongjing City had only just begun. The presidential palace was merely a foundation pit. The Ministry of Defense Intelligence Department and other military agencies were housed in a 2-story building serving as temporary offices. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs was slightly better off, having completed 4 floors. The State Council office building and senior officials, including the Prime Minister, were all crammed into the 2nd floor of the Foreign Ministry building. To accommodate this delegation, the Planet Fortress had specially airlifted 4 modular field shelters to Jongjing City. These contained over 160 standard small bedrooms and 20 executive bedrooms sufficient for the delegation. Additionally, a small meeting room was set up on each side of the shelters for the delegation's use. The members of the military delegation had embarked on this journey with high hopes. But as their special aircraft entered Hetty's Island, they were stunned. The place was incredibly desolate, nothing but gravel and marshland. When the plane passed over Fire Province, they saw no semblance of a city or village. The delegation had pinned great expectations on Jongjing City, the capital of the Kingdom of Hetties. However, the scene that greeted their eyes was just as barren as Fire Province. They exchanged bewildered glances. We haven't landed in the wrong place, have we? How can a country with such advanced fighter jets be this desolate? Even our rural hometown is decades ahead of this place. And this is the capital of the Kingdom of Hetties. No way. This might be the most backward and desolate capital in the world. No streets, no buildings, not even a single. Finally, as the special aircraft arrived over Dharma International Airport, they caught sight of a few buildings and an airstrip. This was likely the only place with a modern touch the delegation had seen since entering the Kingdom of Hetties. The delegation members descending the gangway exchanged bewildered glances as if seeking mutual confirmation had they fallen for a pyramid scheme. Yet seeing the officers at the front shaking hands with Prime Minister Damo of the Heathis Kingdom suggested otherwise, and the string of luxury sedans behind him seemed genuine enough. The patrolling soldiers in the distance were well-equipped, their gear appearing more advanced, even more futuristic, than that of the SAM military. The military vehicles clearly designed for high mobility and rapid deployment via airlift or sling loading, along with the angular armed helicopters occasionally crossing the sky, hinted at a highly developed industrial nation. So why was there not a single decent building in sight? Professor Zhang, equally puzzled, followed the group onto a luxury bus provided by the Heathis Kingdom and rode out of the airport to a square in the central administrative district of Jongjing City. The square was merely a leveled patch of dirt not yet paved with cement, yet one half of it was occupied by a cluster of highly futuristic metallic structures. Galaxy Chief of Staff of the Joint Operations Office explained, "Ladies and gentlemen, our nation is a newborn ocean kingdom. Everything is nascent, and we are still in the early stages of construction. To provide a comfortable environment for our distinguished delegation guests, our president has specially commissioned this modular residential area. He pointed to the only technologically striking building. This is a joint development by our Ministry of Science and Technology and the Ministry of National Defense, a hotel-grade field assembly unit that can be freely configured based on needs. It contains 160 standard 20-square-meter bedrooms and 20 executive 40-square-meter bedrooms, each equipped with en-suite bathrooms, computers, TVs, refrigerators, and other daily necessities. There are also two 80-square-meter meeting rooms, 6 public restrooms, 2 small dining halls seating 100 each, 4 gyms, 4 swimming pools, and 4 bars at the building's corners, each capable of accommodating. We call this building the Longting Military Hotel, and we hope you enjoy your stay. Prime Minister Damo added with a smile, "Please follow our staff to check in first. We'll discuss further arrangements later." Oh, and on the other side of the square, there are 5 Audi sedans, 4 buses, and 20 military Humvees for your use. The keys are in the vehicles, all provided for the delegation during your time here. Later, the group leaders registered one by one with the assistance of Hethys Kingdom staff and lined up by service branch. Military discipline was ever present. Regardless of service branch rank or age, the soldiers formed 5 lines in the blink of an eye and marched in unison into the Longting Military Hotel under the staff's guidance. Professor Zhang, as an expert, was assigned one of the 20 executive suites. The leading generals insisted on giving the suites to the military experts, ensuring they could rest better after work. After listening to the Hethys Kingdom staff's introduction, Professor Zhang opened his room door. Before even stepping inside, he felt as if he were dreaming. Turning to see the same reaction on everyone else's faces, he smiled and nodded at them. Before him was a pale green space. At the entrance, an automatic shoe-changing stool extended beneath, which was a glass-encased shoe box containing a pair of slippers and a pair of flats. After changing into the slippers and placing his own shoes inside, a puff of white smoke sprayed from the glass box, accompanied by a purple light beginning to shine. After changing his shoes, Professor Zhang began to admire the room's interior. As a military expert, he immediately recognized that everything in the room could be folded into the walls, floor, or ceiling for rapid deployment and use. The room appeared spacious, with an L-shaped sofa in the center, a liftable coffee table opposite it, and 2 separate sofas across from that. On the left hung a frameless, ultra-thin, wall-mounted TV, something unheard of domestically. There was also a bar, its shelves lined with an entire wall of liquor and cabinets below stocked with various drinks. Remarkably, the selection included Moutai and Wuliangya. "Isn't this a bit too decadent?" he murmured softly. Professor Zhang whispered softly. To the side stood a coffee machine and a small ice cream maker. Beside them, a vertical, circular, transparent, rotating rack displayed at least 50 types of cigarettes, with an aluminum bucket in the center holding 20 cigars. Opposite was a machine he had never seen before, a screen showing various food images above a tray below. Professor Zhang tapped it repeatedly, unable to figure out its purpose, when a sudden voice nearly startled the dear professor into a heart attack. "Dear guest, I notice you are examining the automatic food heater. May I assist you? I can activate it and make selections for you." "You, who are you?" Professor Zhang racked his brain, never imagining that artificial intelligence could converse so naturally at this time, let alone that this was a fragment of the shipborne intelligent core. "Professor Zhang, I am the President's artificial intelligence. You may call me Lanyue. I can assist you with any issues during your stay. I can remotely control all facilities in the Longting Military Hotel. You don't even need to lift a finger. So advanced. Has the Hethys Ocean Kingdom reached such a level?" Professor Zhang asked skeptically. "How about a serving of braised pork from the automatic food heater?" "Certainly, please wait a moment." Minutes later, a steaming bowl of fragrant braised pork appeared. This time, Professor Zhang was truly astounded. The technology of this kingdom was extraordinarily advanced. At 6:00 p.m. on October 25th, the daily announcement from the Hethys Ocean Kingdom's Ministry of Foreign Affairs came on time. At 2:00 p.m. on October 25th, the HF-41 intercontinental ballistic missiles launched by our strategic deterrent forces successfully struck their predetermined targets. This was a test of our strategic deterrent capabilities and a practical deterrent against unfriendly nations. Our strategic deterrent forces are established specifically to target hostile nations and remain on high alert at all times. When national security is at stake, these forces are authorized to first use HF-41 intercontinental ballistic missiles equipped with nuclear warheads. Additionally, our military has noted that several warships from unfriendly nations are sailing toward our territorial waters, and the nations to which these vessels belong have issued impolite and arrogant warnings to us. Our Ministry of National Defense is currently formulating strike plans. October 26th, Planetary Fortress Command Center. General Lin Pete, give me a general overview of the military strike plan against unfriendly nations. Qin Shaohai sat in the commander's seat with a cup of coffee, while Lan Yuer stood faithfully behind him like a shadow. "Mr. President, with our current conventional means, we lack the capability to conduct military strikes against those nations. I recommend deploying the Planetary Fortress Defense Force to execute this large-scale, transcontinental military operation. Secretary of Defense Lin Pete said expressionlessly. Hold on. I'm not sure if this will be discovered. We've been too famous lately. Fame can be a curse. Our skies are now filled with satellites, and even a single misstep could expose us. If a scheming nation finds out, we might be branded as aliens and painted as Earth's enemy by the West. I don't want to become a public enemy of humanity. Among these, only Maple Leaf Nation is a NATO member, right? Easterny Nation is merely an ally of Uncle Sam. We can devise a plan around these two countries. It's also a perfect chance to test whether NATO's collective defense clause is effective. Whether it's a paper tiger, we'll know once we try, Qin Xiaohai said. Secretary of Defense Lin Pete asked Mr. President, how do you intend to test it? Don't we have Sea Wolf-class nuclear submarines? Dispatch 2 Sea Wolf-class nuclear submarines to cruise to the west coast of Maple Leaf Nation and launch 12 Tomahawk cruise missiles at them. Mr. President, what about the Easterny Nation? Deploy the Mantis Shrimp Aircraft Carrier Battle Group to the waters off Yokosuka Naval Base. That little bird has been prowling around my turf twice. It's time I return the visit. Tell them my carrier intends to enter Yokosuka port for an official visit. Qin Xiaohai said menacingly. Just as Lin Pete was about to leave, Qin Xiaohai called him back. Wait, I have another idea. Negotiate with Panda Nation. Inform them that a few of our Air Force planes may be forced to land at their airports due to fuel issues, and have them prepare for reception. Dispatch a special air task force consisting of 2 replica B-1B strategic bombers, 4 FJ-16 fighter jets, and 2 aerial refueling aircraft to tour the territories of Uncle Sam's allies in the Asia-Pacific. Then fly to Panda Nation's air base. All pilots will return aboard the refueling planes while the other aircraft will be handed over on-site. Some small nations never understand that influence is built on power. After speaking, Qin Xiaohai turned and grabbed Lan Yu, asking Lan Yu, do you remember what I asked you about counterfeit currency last time? Yes, Mr. President. We have already produced 2 Violet 12 color printing presses confirmed to surpass current Earth technology by 40 to 45 years, making them impossible to replicate in the short term. Arrange for some people to contact the underground organizations that produce and sell counterfeit currency in our blacklisted countries. Assist them in manufacturing banknotes for their respective nations. Mass-produce them. A portion will go to these underground groups, and the rest we will keep. Establish a trading company under our nation's control in the Cayman Islands using these banknotes to purchase gold worldwide. We only want gold, by massive amounts of it. Understood, Mr. President. However, this could cause the collapse of global financial systems. Please be cautious in your decision. Of course I know, but it won't collapse. My goal isn't to cause collapse. You'll understand in time, just not now. Additionally, we need to establish a Bureau of Immigration and Tourism directly. Once completed, Water Province will have Water City in the center, South Bird Island City to the lower right, and North Bird Island City to the upper right. For other cities and regions in Water Province outside Dream City, commercial operations will suffice. However, I have a method to rapidly build a network of connections. As Qin Xiaohai said this, a faint, barely noticeable smile crossed his face. Mr. President, what method? Lan Yu asked, utterly confused. Like this, invite some AV stars to settle or reside in Water Province in the name of our kingdom. Stars like Muto Ran Matsushima Minami or Ino AI. Offer them a fixed annual salary of 100 million yen. Also hire some female stars from Europe and America with the same salary. I bet this will draw a crowd. Eventually, there will be a mad rush. Finally, invite some casinos from Macau or Las Vegas to Water Province. That will make this province a hotspot. As Qin Xiaohai spoke, he prepared to leave the command center, muttering, "He who knows not Muto Ran has read in vain." Zhongjing City, Longting Military Hotel Conference Room 01. Today marked a preliminary meeting of the delegation. The delegation, comprising 24 representatives from various military branches, held talks with Hedy's Ocean Kingdom's Minister of Defense Lin Pete, Minister of Foreign Affairs Hillary, Navy Commander Lan Zhongli, and Air Force Commander Cheng Feifeng. The delegation leader tentatively asked our Air Force representatives wish to tour the JF-20 fighter jets that escorted us. The Air Force representatives' eyes were filled with anticipation, yet tinged with doubt. As such an advanced stealth fighter, it was undoubtedly a top-secret national treasure, typically inaccessible to outsiders. Currently, only the United States possessed the F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighter bomber, and no other nation was known to have stealth fighters. Certainly, we have a squadron of JF-20 fighters deployed on Mercury Island under the 2nd Air Superiority Fighter Wing of the 1st Air Division of the Hedy's Ocean Kingdom Air Force. After the meeting, we will arrange a special flight for the Air Force representatives to Mercury Island. Air Force Commander Cheng Feifeng replied with a professional smile. Oh, really? The representatives could hardly believe their ears. Was this possible? Could it be that they were merely being polite since it was their first request? The JF-20 was arguably the world's most advanced fighter laden with classified technology. How could the Air Force commander be so casual about granting them a tour? Of course it's true. Our president has instructed that our nation's military equipment is fully open to your delegation. Minister of Defense Lin Pete also replied with a smile. At that moment, Professor Zhang, unable to contain himself after hearing that the Air Force representatives could visit the JF-20, stood up excitedly and said. The moment the agitated Professor Zhang rose to his feet, the others stared at him in astonishment as everyone had been seated for their conversation. His sudden standing seemed peculiar, yet they instantly grasped the reason. Who wouldn't be stirred by the chance to witness the world's most advanced weaponry up close? Professor Zhang, where would you like to go? What do you wish to see? Inquired Admiral Lan Zhongli, the Navy commander. Admiral Lan, I would like to visit your nation's aircraft carrier. Of course, there's no need for concern. Our aircraft carrier is fully open to the delegation as well. However, Admiral Lan Zhongli's deliberate pause made every delegate break out in a cold sweat. However, the Mantis Shrimp Carrier Strike Group is currently en route to the Eastern E Kingdom over 120 kilometers from here. Professor Zhang will need to take our aircraft to the carrier. Is that acceptable? Admiral Lan Zhongli spoke with a hint of apology. Is that true? Can I truly observe your carrier's combat operations aboard? Professor Zhang asked, incredulous. Of course, no problem at all. We can arrange an HC-2 Grey Cat transport aircraft capable of landing on the carrier to take the delegates aboard. Thank you so much. Additionally, some of our naval colleagues would also like to join. Professor Zhang, rest assured, any delegate who wishes to go can. If one HC-2 isn't enough, we can arrange two, well, fully meet your delegation's needs, Admiral Lan Zhongli said, still smiling. Later, some wanted to visit the Marine Corps base in Wuda Province with WD northeast of Hedas Island to see tanks and individual equipment. Others wished to tour the Air Force's tankers AWACS, an electronic warfare aircraft, and some wanted to see the HF-41 intercontinental ballistic missile launched yesterday. All requests were fulfilled one by one. Distinguished delegates, our president suggests you should also take a look at our HF-26. Minister Lin, is the HF-26 also an intercontinental missile? No, it's a different type of ballistic missile. Excellent, excellent. We thank your president for the reminder. Please make the arrangements, Minister Lin. Just as everyone thought it was over, a young naval officer stood up and asked, I also want to ask Admiral Lan, does your country possess nuclear submarines? Everyone was puzzled as the equipment to be visited had all been revealed or was already known to be state-of-the-art. However, the nuclear submarines of the Hedas Ocean Kingdom had never been seen or involved in any military operations. The slightly apologetic expression on Admiral Lan Zhongli's face momentarily disheartened the officer, but his subsequent words filled the young naval officer with excitement. Esteemed delegate, do you know how to parachute? Because we have two attack nuclear submarines heading east over 240 kilometers from here preparing for a land attack mission. If you're interested, we can arrange a brand new long-range strategic bomber to take you there. Yes, I can parachute. I want to go. Please make the arrangements. Very well. Later, please follow the staff to take a helicopter to our strategic bomber base in Good Province, Gold, literally translated southeast of Hedas Island, and then board the strategic bomber. Admiral Lan Zhongli said with delight. Finally, the head of the delegation thanked the president of the Hedas Ocean Kingdom for his hospitality and the kingdom's military for their strong support. As the other delegates prepared to return, the delegation head pulled Admiral Lan Zhongli aside and asked quietly, Admiral Lan, I have a small question I'd like to ask you in private. General Fu, what is your question? I'm curious. Why is your nation's mighty 900-ton aircraft carrier named Mantis Shrimp? Oh, that question. Our nation's strategic weapons like carriers are named by the president. When we asked him, he replied, we are an ocean kingdom, so our national treasures should be named after marine life. Moreover, we are a peace-loving nation, so we choose small, cute, and delicious marine creatures. This way, people from all countries will feel fondness rather than fear toward our strategic weapons. 500 nautical miles southwest of the Hedas Ocean Kingdom, a Type 052 DL destroyer and a Type 054A frigate sailed in a column. 30 nautical miles south of them, 4 small warships from 4 different nations advanced at 20 knots. The flagship of this small fleet was the Kangaroo Kingdom Navy's frigate HMAS Kara, a 360-ton Anzac-class vessel equipped with a 127mm Mk-45 naval gun at the bow, 2 quadruple 141 Malawian Quaches Harpoon anti-ship missile launchers at the B position behind the main gun, 2 8-cell 41 Malawian Quaches vertical launch systems, amidships loaded with 8 RIM 7P vertical launch Sea Sparrow anti-air missiles, and a stern helicopter platform with a hangar. Aboard the HMAS Kara, in the bridge, Commander Holman stared intently at the F-157 combat management system. Moments ago, the ship's 453TR air surface search radar had detected 2 hostile warships directly ahead. Commander Holman, 2 enemy vessels are approaching our fleet at 30 knots, range 26 nautical miles, closing rapidly. Have they sent any signals? Commander Holman inquired. Not yet, sir. Then send them an inquiry signal. Aye, sir. Attention vessels ahead. Attention vessels ahead. This is the Kangaroo Kingdom Navy frigate HMAS Kara. Our fleet consists of 4 warships on a deterrence mission. Identify yourselves and alter your course to avoid our fleet. Commander Holman anxiously awaited a reply. As the distance closed to 20 nautical miles, he could no longer contain himself. Reduce fleet speed to 15 knots. Launch the shipboard helicopter immediately. Amid a flurry of activity, an S-70B anti-submarine helicopter lifted off from the stern platform and sped forward. But the helicopter had barely flown any distance before it plunged into the sea. The incident was so sudden that the helicopter didn't even have time to issue a warning. Just then, the F-157 combat management system sounded an alarm. Red lights flashed across the bridge, and a piercing siren jolted everyone's senses. Missiles. Missiles. The operator confirmed nervously, reporting commander. Confirmed 3 anti-ship missiles launched from the enemy vessel's supersonic speed, transitioning from sea skimming to climbing phase. What? Missiles entering the climbing phase. That means. Commander Holman stared at the operator in shock. Before he could finish, 3 flashes descended from the sky, obliterating the 3 ships surrounding the HMAS Kara. Massive explosions and brilliant flashes erupted around the HMAS Kara. Though the ships were hundreds of meters apart, countless fragments rained down on the frigate. Each clatter and bang resonated like the knock of death, shaking the sailors in the bridge. Commander Holman stared blankly at the scene, his legs trembling uncontrollably. As an aging officer nearing retirement, he had absolutely no desire to start a war. But now war was right before his eyes. What should he do? Should he open fire? But where had the enemy's missiles come from? How had they arrived? He still hadn't figured it out. Recalling the recent sinking of the Eastern Kingdom's destroyer and the hasty retreat of the Sam country's fleet, Commander Holman couldn't help but feel a pang of fear. Commander, what should we do? What do we do? An officer stepped behind Commander Holman. Beep, beep, beep. Just then, the secure command system in the bridge began automatically printing an order. The first officer hurried to the small printer on the rear wall of the command room, and a long strip of paper was quickly printed. Commander Holman watched nervously as the first officer approached with the order. He thought, damn it, I hope it's not an order to attack. Sir, we've received a strange order, the first officer said, puzzled. What strange order? The first mate seemed to want to confirm, once more not rushing to reply to Commander Holman's inquiry. After a few seconds, he spoke slowly. Sir, the order says we are like lice borrowing a tiger's might to intimidate others, and we are to scram immediately. Commander Holman exclaimed in shock. But that's our national defense encrypted channel. How did they access this system and send messages to our command network? Sir, they called us lice. That's an insult to our kangaroo nation. We should retaliate. Before the first mate could finish, a sudden explosion erupted 500 meters to the starboard front. Before the crew in the bridge could recover, another shell exploded 400 meters to the starboard front. Sir, they are warning us and using naval guns to drive us away, an officer reacted. Commander Holman's face was a mix of fear and helplessness. Without any new orders after their report, an unauthorized retreat could lead to punishment or even early retirement. As Commander Holman hesitated, the shells had already reached 300 meters. Given how they launched missiles to sink the other 3 warships, they won't show any mercy. Prepare to turn, Commander Holman said with a faltering voice. Sir, we haven't received orders yet. Besides, there are survivors from other nations' warships in the sea. We should rescue them, another officer urged. Another shell exploded at 200 meters. No time left. If we don't turn now, we'll become the ones in the water. As for the other nations' sailors, may God bless them. Hard to port now. Commander Holman commanded decisively. Above an island in Southeast Asia, 2 H-160 strategic bombers modeled after the Tu-160, escorted by 4 FJ-16 fighters, arrived over Luzon Island at 2 p.m. on October 26, 230 kilometers from Marani City. The formation flew arrogantly at 7,000 meters. As it approached Vertimore Air Base near Marani, the ground finally scrambled available fighters. The formation then descended to 5,000 meters over the base to allow the nation's outdated aircraft to catch up. By the time the local Air Force had scrambled 1 F-5A jet fighter and 2 OV-10 Broncos, the formation had already circled the base airspace twice. Seeing the 6 advanced warplanes in a precise formation, the local pilots were paralyzed with fear. 2 FJ-16 fighter bombers broke formation and approached the 2 OV-10 propeller fighters. One executed a daring and precise cross, skimming past the OV-10's nose. The massive jet wash disrupted the propeller's airflow, causing it to fail after chaotic speed changes. The other FJ-16 performed a beautiful culbit maneuver, diving under the OV-10's belly, rising sharply past its nose, and looping behind to skim under its belly again before accelerating away. The entire sequence was fluid and swift. The powerful engines generated immense kinetic energy, severely disturbing the airflow around the decades-old OV-10, which suffered mechanical failure and nosedived due to engine stall. This made the nearby F-5A even more cautious, but the FJ-16 seemed intent on humiliating the F-5A fighter of a certain nation at cruising altitude 420 meters. You are too close to our formation, posing a serious threat to our flight safety. Turn away immediately, or you will be shot down without warning. Whether the pilot was terrified, a novice who forgot to turn on the radio, or the aircraft lacked communication equipment, the F-5A gave no response. After 2 minutes, the FJ-16 destroyed it with cannon fire, causing it to explode in midair. The formation then descended to 320 meters, flying over Marani City at Mach 07 in formation before continuing north along a set route. As the formation neared another nation's air defense zone, 2 Mirage 2000 fighters scrambled to intercept. His Ocean Kingdom warplanes at altitude 700. You are approaching our airspace, affecting flight safety. Turn back immediately. The FJ-16 simply replied, our formation has a 60-kilometer warning zone. Any unauthorized entry will result in being shot down. Repeat, any unauthorized entry will be shot down. The Mirage 2000 seemed unperturbed by the warning, slowly approaching the formation. Accustomed to peacetime identification missions, the pilots assumed it was routine, even if a dogfight ensued. Given that nations like the US, Russia, and Japan often engaged in escort flights, no one expected His Ocean Kingdom to be so uncompromising. When the 2 Mirage 2000s carelessly entered the 60-kilometer warning zone, 2 advanced medium-range air-to-air missiles detached from the FJ-16's pylons. After dropping about 10 meters, their engines ignited, propelling them toward the intruders. The piercing infrared warning alarms filled the Mirage cockpits. The pilots attempted evasive maneuvers, but couldn't shake the lethal sound. Unbeknownst to them, the missiles were still over 10 kilometers away, making maneuvers unnecessary. By the time they completed their evasive actions, the missiles were visible, but too close to counter. Intermittent clouds hindered visibility, and the FJ-16 pilots had chosen to launch from the west, using the sun's blind spot to further reduce visual detection range. The tactic succeeded under the dual interference of clouds and sunlight. The Mirage pilots only spotted the missiles at the last moment, a discovery that meant destruction. The 2 Mirages were obliterated without even reporting to their anxious crew. The His Ocean Kingdom formation regrouped, descending to 420 meters for ultra-low-level flight over a city in the region, continuing north. Alerted ground bases scrambled to prepare surface-to-air missiles, but the ultra-low-level penetration and terrain-hugging flight perfectly masked the formation, preventing radar lock-on. Emergency scrambles failed to locate or intercept the formation until it passed over another city. As the formation prepared to leave, 2 FJ-16s made sharp turns to point their noses at 2 more Mirage 2000s, launching 2 advanced medium-range air-to-air missiles toward the pursuers. After launching the missiles, the FJ-16s rejoined the formation, unconcerned with whether the Mirage. This is His Ocean Kingdom Air Force H-160 strategic bomber formation, comprising 2 H-160 bombers, 4 FJ-16 fighters, and 2 tankers. Identification code 7A650, approaching your airspace for a handover mission. After a few seconds, the Panda Nation Air Force responded. His Ocean Kingdom Air Force H-160 formation received. This is Panda Nation Air Force J-11 fighter response code 170A6. Proceeding with handover as planned. Turn to 070, descend to 6500 meters. Received. Turning to 070, altitude 6500 set. 2 of our J-11s will escort you for the entire journey until safe landing. Wishing you success. Received. Thank you. At a test base in an inland region. Xiaozhong, hurry up, leave the useless stuff. The His Ocean Kingdom Air Formation has entered our airspace and will arrive at the airport in half an hour. Dean Liu and the others have already left. We can't be late. We must go receive the new aircraft. One of them is assigned to us. Don't let the Air Force snatch it. All right, Section Chief, I'm done packing. Let's go get our big treasure. The Swan, the White Swan, my dream lover. I'm coming. Kid, you lose your mind over the White Swan. This time there are also 4 FJ-16s, their treasures too. In the command center of the planetary fortress, Qin Shaohai reclined in the command chair while the stunning beauty Lu Yifei was giving him a head massage. In front of him, Lan Yuer was introducing the recent international affairs. Mr. President, multiple countries are publicly suggesting that we cease our conflict with the U.S. and Japan and are willing to mediate for a ceasefire. Currently, the Sam Nation has already agreed, and the Bear Nation suggests that we hold talks with the Sam Nation and the Eastern Barbarians in Chelyabinsk. Wait a moment, let me think. It's a bit early for peace talks now. There are still several countries we haven't addressed, like the John Nation, which has the dispute over Ass Donkey Island, also known as the Donkey Venus Islands. Then there's the romantic Perfume Nation, whose reach in Africa is too extensive. And the Kangaroo Nation and Maple Leaf Nation, if we don't discipline them, they will occasionally jump out and make a fuss. And that what's it called, Big Bull Popo Nation, they are also quite disgusting. Moreover, the situation with the Eastern Barbarians is not yet resolved. We shouldn't rush into anything. Off the coast of the Eastern Barbarians in the Pai Pai Xia aircraft carrier battle group, Colonel Witt, the captain of the Pai Pai Xia aircraft carrier and commander of the battle group, said, "Professor Zhang, welcome your naval personnel aboard. Our battle group is about to commence combat operations. You may find positions to observe based on your interests or specialties. Thank you so much. We will not interfere with your military operations. Please rest assured. No problem, feel free to move around. I need to return to my command position. Combat will commence shortly," Colonel Witt replied apologetically. At this moment, the Pai Pai Xia aircraft carrier battle group was approximately 300 nautical miles from the territorial waters of the Eastern Barbarians, entering their exclusive economic zone. 2 FJ-15 fighter jets took off to replace another 2 FJ-15s that were performing patrol and alert duties above the fleet. Seaweed 8A, unidentified aerial activity, detected emergency takeoff. Seaweed 4, takeoff early, the Yet 3C warning aircraft urgently called out. At this time, 2 F-5E fighter jets from the Eastern Barbarian Self-Defense Force dangerously approached the Pai Pai Xia aircraft carrier battle group, while 2 FJ-15s on patrol rushed to intercept. As the 2 FJ-15s approached the Eastern Barbarian F-5E fighter jets, the flight recorders on the 2 FJ-15s powered on, activating the radar recording system and photo reconnaissance equipment. The intelligence system of the planetary fortress remotely accessed the F-5E fighter jets and activated the onboard AM-7 Sparrow air-to-air missiles, which flew toward the 2 FJ-15s, leaving the pilots helpless as they watched the missiles depart from the underwing mounts. Emergency situation. The AM-7 Sparrow missiles suddenly activated. They have suddenly activated. I cannot control them. The Eastern Barbarian pilot shouted in terror over the radio. After collecting all evidence, the 2 FJ-15s quickly turned right to disengage, while 4 AM-7 Sparrow missiles were interfered with and self-destructed. Then the other 2 FJ-15s took their positions and launched 2 Pride 12 air-to-air missiles at each of the 2 Eastern Barbarian F-5E fighter jets. The missiles ignited after leaving the underwing mounts, tracing an upward arc before accelerating towards their targets. Although the F-5E desperately maneuvered, all those efforts were futile against the Pride 12, with 2 explosions ringing out in succession. The Yet 3C warning aircraft recorded the evidence of the Eastern Barbarian jets firing missiles first at the Hedes Ocean Kingdom jets over the high seas and simultaneously sent it to major media outlets worldwide. Almost simultaneously, the affiliated ship of the Pai Pai Xia aircraft carrier battle group, the Dawanju-class missile destroyer, a copy of the 052DL model, both Dawanju and Zhaoyangyu, launched 16 Longsword 10 cruise missiles towards the Yokosuka naval base. The Burke-class destroyer of the Sam Nation in the harbor and the 2 Konga-class destroyers, Kongu and Ikazuchi of the Eastern Barbarians, activated their air defense systems upon detecting the incoming missiles. 2 sets of Patriot air defense missile systems and 2 land-based phalanx systems in the harbor also activated, launching several interceptors. But at the moment the air defense missiles were fired, the guidance systems burned out and the missiles engaged in erratic movements before blindly self-destructing in the air. After a series of air defense actions, not a single cruise missile was shot down or destroyed. The planetary fortress connected to and took over the port's air defense facilities, including 1 SAM destroyer and 2 Eastern Barbarian destroyers, and as the Longsword 10 cruise missiles were about to converge on their targets, directed the Sam's Burke-class destroyer to activate the triple-tube 324mm 32 Malawian Quaches torpedo launch system, launching 4 324mm 32 Malawian Quaches torpedoes. The Eastern Barbarian Maritime Self-Defense Force destroyers, caught off guard by a friendly fire, remained docked until the massive explosions echoed from the ship's hull. No one noticed these unfortunate Konga-class destroyers because the shore was currently under intense bombardment from the Longsword 10, with 32 Longsword 10 cruise missiles accurately striking. The command headquarters of the SAM Navy stationed in the Eastern Barbarians, the Yokosuka Fleet Command Headquarters, the 7th Submarine Group Command Headquarters, the Ship Repair Department, the Supply Station, the Joint Fleet Command Station, and the island of Wuqian across the harbor. Wuqian Island serves as Yokosuka's fuel depot, containing 37 fuel storage areas for aviation gasoline, jet fuel, automotive gasoline, and marine diesel oil, with a total storage capacity of approximately 4.0 kiloliters. The Longsword 10 targeted these important sites with generally 2 to 3 missiles per target. After a series of explosive the explosions in Yokosuka and the missile attacks successfully captured the attention of the entire Eastern Barbarian nation, with nearly all fighter jets from Honshu gathering near the military port. At that moment, a small aerial formation was flying close to the sea surface at an altitude of less than 15 meters. The formation consisted of 1 He-6B electronic warfare aircraft and 2 FJ-15 fighter jets, maintaining radio silence throughout. After an exciting flight of several hundred kilometers, they approached the coastline, and with the assistance of the Planetary Fortress Intelligence Center, the formation maneuvered along the city edges at a height not exceeding 30 meters, skillfully avoiding various ground obstacles and buildings. At times, they flew between two buildings with the jet wash and instantaneous acceleration during turns, shattering numerous windows. The formation finally flew low through the eastern Barbarian Bay County and entered the capital Bay waters. After more than half an hour, the formation entered the capital city and circled over the Entry National Administration before changing course to fly north. The circling over the Entry National Administration was to inform the Eastern Barbarians that we had processed our entry through official channels. Continuing north, the formation flew over the Tokyo Tower and entered the palace area, circling again in the air to show respect to the emperor. After 2 circles, they ascended to an altitude of 1,000 meters, heading towards the Yasukuni toilet. As they approached the target, 2 GBU-10E laser-guided bombs were dropped, and the 908-kilogram warhead generated a massive explosion after converging on the target, thoroughly destroying the target area. The formation then entered ultra-low altitude again and directly turned east. For the first time in 60 years, the shrill air defense alarm sounded over the capital. Shrimp, shrimp, bat calling, mission accomplished, returning to base, 120 kilometers from our formation, 4 F-15 fighters at 6 o'clock, over. Aircraft carrier, Pipixia. Bat, return to base on the predetermined course. We'll deal with the flies behind us. A rectangular object extended from the right side of the carrier's stern. As it opened on all sides, a metal needle-like structure stood erect in its center. After a current was conducted into the needle, a larger surge of electricity shot upward from its tip and vanished into the clouds above the carrier. At that moment, the F-15 formation pursuing the unidentified international warplanes was suddenly enveloped by a vortex of lightning. Amidst the crackling sounds of burning electronic equipment, the 4 F-15s plunged into the sea, accompanied by the desperate cries of their pilots. Maple Leaf Country, 260 nautical miles off the coast of Vancouver. 2 Seawolf-class attack nuclear submarines hovered like phantoms in the sea. Inside the submarine's control room, every station was preparing for the missile attack. Shut down main propulsion, maintain speed at 2 knots, align the hull with the ocean current. Ascend to a launch depth of 30 meters. Activate gyroscopic stabilizers. Begin pressurizing the launch tubes. Connect missile power. Input coordinate navigation data. Initiate terrain matching system self-check. Communications self-check. Power on missile computers. Open launch tubes 1 through 8 in sequence. Fire. Missile launch normal, 1 away, 2 away, 8 away. Missiles break surface. First stage rocket ignition. Missiles ascending, repeat, missiles ascending normally. Sam Country, Colorado Springs City, Cheyenne Mountain, North American Aerospace Defense Command. Jack, look. Missile warning. 1 no 8 no 16. Quick alarm. Missile attack, repeat, missile attack. The operator activated the alarm system while informing the commanding officer. The system automatically notified the responsible officers. Satellites relayed missile information to NORAD in real time. 1 minute later, the missile impact points were predicted. The missile early warning radar deployed on Mount Rainier simultaneously detected the target's target identification. The target missiles are essentially identical to the BGM-109 cruise missile. Repeat, the target missiles are suspected to be Tomahawk cruise missiles. Launch source approximately 230 nautical miles from the coast. Flight speed 1,000 kilometers per hour. Altitude 14 meters. Sea skimming flight. Estimated time to Vancouver 22 minutes. Level 1 warning, Level 1 warning. However, due to the lack of any substantial military threat on the west coast of North America, previously there were no adequate air defense missile systems nearby, nor were there any destroyers equipped with air defense missiles in the relevant sea area. NORAD could only urgently scramble fighter jets to respond. The only nearby Patriot missile system was down for maintenance. 6 F-16 fighter jets were urgently scrambled and flew towards the relevant sea area. After detecting the intentions of the 6 F-16s, the intelligence system of the Planetary Fortress accessed their flight control systems and severed the connection between the flight controls and the transmission systems. After completing one turn, the 6 F-16s flew unswervingly towards the vast ocean, never looking back. 22 minutes later, the 16 Tomahawk cruise missiles arrived over Vancouver City in Maple Leaf Country. They rapidly climbed to an altitude of 300 meters, then sequentially locked onto positions around the Vancouver City Hall. Vancouver City Hall was a standalone building situated hundreds of meters away from hotels, shopping malls, and other structures. The cruise missiles detonated sequentially in positions close to the City Hall, surrounding it like a precise demolition operation. Apart from overturning parked cars nearby, no fatalities occurred, though approximately 130 people, including City Hall staff, were injured. A large number of citizens witnessed this cruise missile attack, a scene previously seen only on television now unfolding before their very eyes. The target of the missile strike was not some Middle Eastern country harboring terrorists, but Maple Leaf Country, a so-called Western developed nation, a member of NATO, supposedly enjoying the absolute security of its protection clause. The citizens of Vancouver suddenly realized that war was not so distant after all. They found themselves like the bullied nations at the center of conflict, wondering if the next missile might land on their own heads. Unlike in Middle Eastern countries, people here did not immediately flee for their lives or prey. Instead, they sought anything that could serve as a flag, then returned to their communities to launch protest marches. By the time the Seawolf-class submarine had traveled less than 100 nautical miles on its return journey, Vancouver citizens had spontaneously organized and surrounded the devastated city hall chanting slogans. "We want peace, not war. We want eggs, not missiles. We want safety, not bastards," referring to the Maple Leaf Country president who provoked the Hedes Ocean Kingdom. These 2 consecutive days of military operations once again propelled the small Central Pacific nation, the Hedes Ocean Kingdom, to the top of international trending topics. It had openly deployed active-duty air power to fly over the capital of Banana Country, shot down that country's only Air Force fighter within its airspace, then passed through another region and shot down military aircraft. It dispatched a carrier strike group close to the coastal waters of Dongi Country and launched a massive missile attack on Asia's premier naval port. Simultaneously, it sent a formation of warplanes on a surprise raid on Dongi Country's capital, treating the entire Dongi air defense system as non-existent, delivering a resounding slap to the Samdongi alliance. Because the Vancouver incident in Maple Leaf Country was a covert attack by a nuclear submarine, and it used Sam Country's BGM-109 Tomahawk cruise missiles, the media did not definitively attribute it to the Hedes Ocean Kingdom until a country claimed responsibility. Yet in truth, no nation other than this reckless little state would dare to blatantly attack a NATO member. Hedes Ocean Kingdom Ministry of Foreign Affairs Press Video Conference. This was the Hedes Ocean Kingdom's first video link conference, established at the request of Qin Shaohai as a trial. Numerous media outlets registered for the video link immediately. Foreign Minister Hilla smiled and gestured for the journalists to ask questions. The order was determined by a first click first ask system based on network speed. Whoever had the best connection and clicked first got the first question. I am a reporter from AFP. My question, Madam Minister: why has the Hedes Ocean Kingdom repeatedly and unprovokedly provoked various countries, flagrantly trampled on international law, and directly and barbarically attacked multiple sovereign states? The military actions of the Hedes Ocean Kingdom are merely warnings and punishments conducted only in retaliation after attacks by certain hegemonic powers. We have always insisted on developing multilateral relations on the basis of equality and mutual benefit, but we do not accept threats or provocations. War is not the correct path to resolving issues. On the contrary, it escalates the situation. The phone at our Ministry of Foreign Affairs is staffed around the clock, and we are eager to engage in diplomatic consultations with all countries to resolve disputes. However, our Ministry of National Defense will remain on high alert. Any provocation or threat will be met with a resolute and crushing blow from our armed forces. I am a reporter from BBC. My question, is it true, as reported by some media, that Hedes Ocean Kingdom's warplanes were detained after intruding into Panda Country's airspace? If true, is the Hedes Ocean Kingdom concerned that Panda Country might deploy military forces for reciprocal? According to information from our Ministry of National Defense this afternoon, 2 H-160 bombers and 4 FJ-16 fighters of our Air Force made an emergency landing at an airport in their country due to fuel exhaustion. We express regret over this incident. Our Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Panda Country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs are currently in consultations regarding the matter. I reiterate that our country has always upheld the principle of resolving disputes through diplomatic negotiations. Force is not the only way to solve problems. I am a reporter from Asahi Shimbun. My question, why did the Hedes Ocean Kingdom brazenly dispatch an aircraft carrier to attack our Dongi Country? Why did it also audaciously send warplanes to raid our capital and brutally bomb our spiritual sanctuary, the Yasukuni toilet? This reporter, why do you fail to mention the incident of your country ambushing our military aircraft over international waters? Our country has provided relevant evidence to major newspapers and news agencies. It includes radar data, video footage, GPS positioning data, etc. All irrefutable proof. Is your nation inherently inclined to distort the truth? Madam Minister, may I ask, does the Hedes Ocean Kingdom's recent brazen use of force against multiple countries, including a NATO member, indicate that it seeks to challenge NATO? Or perhaps to challenge the order of the civilized world? Hilla smiled faintly and said, through this video conference, I find that the journalists selected by various media outlets are not professional. Journalists should stand on the side of fairness and justice, presenting the full picture of events and incidents to the public. Yet from your questions I detect considerable bias and arrogance. Therefore, I announce the indefinite suspension of this video conference. For other news releases, please tune in to the 6 p.m. press conference tonight. At 6 p.m. on November 2, 2005, the press conference of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Hedes Ocean Kingdom was broadcast live on major television networks worldwide. The eternal image of Foreign Ministry spokesperson Louis Fayer remained unchanged, a tight uniform, flowing blonde hair, and an icy expression. Authorized by the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs released the following statement, first on November 1, 2005. In response to the malicious participation of the Eastern Barbarian Navy in blockading us, their destroyer the Takami ignored the mechanical failure of our vessel and deliberately obstructed our ship's course, causing damage to our warship. To this day, they have not apologized or compensated. The Eastern Barbarian Nation has repeatedly followed the Sam Nation in blockading and militarily threatening our country, endangering our national security. Under the authorization of our President, the Navy's Pisces Shrimp Aircraft Carrier Strike Group WA, regarding the collateral damage to the military forces and equipment of the Sam Nation stationed at the Yokosuka base during the missile strikes, we express our regret. This falls under the category of accidental bombardment caused by the low precision of the missiles. We hope the Sam Nation will not overinterpret or engage in speculation. At the same time, we wish to remind the Sam Nation and the Eastern Barbarian Nation of the provisions of Article 5 of the Treaty of Mutual Cooperation and Security between the Sam Nation and the Eastern Barbarian Nation. Each party recognizes that an armed attack against either party in the territories under the administration of the Eastern Barbarian Nation would be dangerous to its own peace and safety, and declares that it would act to meet the common danger in accordance with its constitutional provisions and processes. If our retaliatory military actions against the Eastern Barbarian Nation comply with the provisions of Article 5 of the aforementioned treaty, we hope both nations will promptly revise the treaty to avoid military confrontation between the Sam Nation and the Hedes Ocean Kingdom. Second, on November 2, 2005, in response to the Maple Leaf Nation government repeatedly following the Sam Nation in imposing sanctions on our country and deploying ships and aircraft to participate in the Sam Nation's military actions against us, under the authorization of our President, the Navy dispatched 2 nuclear-powered attack submarines to approach the coastline of the Maple Leaf Nation. A total of 16 long-range cruise missiles were launched toward Vancouver, precisely hitting predetermined targets as a warning and punitive strike. This attack resulted in no casualties. We hope that through this retaliatory strike, the Maple Leaf Nation government will pull back from the brink, quickly recognize its position as vast in area, but weak in strength, and voluntarily apologize and compensate our country for the cost of the 16 cruise missiles and the deployment of the nuclear submarines totaling $476 million. At the same time, we wish to remind the Maple Leaf Nation government and the NATO alliance it has joined our military action is a retaliatory measure against the Maple Leaf Nation's repeated military threats to our country. If our military action triggers the provisions of Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty regarding collective self-defense, we hope all NATO member states will reconvene to discuss and amend that clause. To provide a clearer understanding of the provisions of Article 5, I will read the clause again. The parties agree that an armed attack against one or more of them in Europe or North America shall be considered an attack against them all, and consequently they agree that if such an armed attack occurs, each of them in exercise of the right of individual or collective self-defense recognized by Article 51 of the Charter of the United Nations will assist the party or parties so attacked by taking forthwith, individually and in concert with the other parties, such action as it deems necessary, including the use of armed force to restore and maintain the security of the North Atlantic area. Third, on October 30, 2005, regarding the Banana Nation and other countries that, despite being backward and possessing nearly zero military strength, have repeatedly followed the Sam Nation in attacking our country. Although their threats have been more verbal than actual, the Hedes Ocean Kingdom does not accept any form of blackmail or intimidation. For our country, any threat is considered a substantive threat, and our countermeasure to substantive threats is always military punishment or elimination. Therefore, under the authorization of our President, the Air Force of the Hedes Ocean Kingdom dispatched 2 strategic bombers and 4 advanced long-range fighter jets, supported by 2 tanker aircraft and 1 early warning aircraft, to carry out a punitive military operation against the Banana Nation. The operation was primarily intended to make it clear that it is merely a backward country with no military capability, lacking the capital to voice its opinions internationally alongside other nations. Even if it follows the Sam Nation, it cannot gain political capital. We advise such countries to quickly pull back from the brink and focus on economic development. Otherwise, they will face more severe punitive military strikes from our country. Regrettably, during the military operation, our Air Force fighters ran out of fuel and were forced to enter the airspace of another country. Although our pilots made every effort to destroy onboard equipment and encryption devices before landing, due to prolonged aerial missions and extreme pilot fatigue, the equipment was not completely destroyed. Following the incident, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of our country urgently consulted with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Panda Nation and expressed apologies for the inadvertent intrusion into its airspace. Our country will propose a $2 billion solution to secure the return of our pilots. Regarding the fighters that landed at its airport after friendly consultations between both sides, it was agreed to initiate a fighter repatriation project and return the fighters to our country in batches over the next decade. We urge the SAM nation not to overinterpret or engage in malicious speculation. Not bad, not bad. Fayer read it very well with perfect cadence, using the most beautiful voice to deliver the sternest warning. Qin Shaohai was watching the press conference from the presidential bedroom. Mr. President, the system has detected elevated hormone levels in your body. According to the Planetary Fortress Protocol, the president may assign any female crew member aboard the ship to address your physiological needs, Lan Yuer said with a smile. Speaking of assignments, I would most like to assign you, but I haven't gotten past this mental hurdle yet. You are, after all, just artificial intelligence. The other female crew members on the ship are also AI. Even though you have flesh and blood and are highly realistic, I still can't bring myself to do it, Qin Shaohai said, hypocritically, inwardly cursing his own duplicity. At that moment, he noticed that Lan Yuer seemed somewhat slender compared to Louis Fayer. He couldn't remember why, but in the beginning he had preferred slim, slender figures, so he had the ship modify Lan Yuer to be on the thinner side. But now, looking at the slightly plumper, more seductive Fayer, he felt that this shape was more appealing and seemed to offer a better tactile experience. He thought about finding an opportunity to modify Lan Yuer again, especially regarding her cupped chest, which, although practical, made him wonder if C or D would be more enjoyable when he inevitably lost control and wanted to savor her. It was decided. He would act once this busy period was over. Lan Yuer, receiving feedback from the system, quickly asked, Mr. President, what's wrong? The system has detected increased activity in your sexual arousal center, excessive secretion of gonadotropin-releasing hormone from the hypothalamus, and abnormal activity of numerous sexual arousal factors in your cerebral cortex. Oh, it's nothing. Qin Shaohai said, snapping back to reality after being stunned by Lan Yuer's sudden deluge of knowledge. By the way, Yuer, on a serious note, we've neutralized the SAM nation's nuclear capabilities, but we can't guarantee whether the actions of other nuclear-armed states will remain under control. Go inform Lin Pite and have him arrange the neutering plan targeting other nuclear powers. After speaking, Qin Shaohai lay back, comfortably continuing to enjoy Louis Fayer's performance at the press conference, muttering to himself, it's a good thing such destructive weapons are in the hands of civilized nations. On November 4, 2005, Ms. Hila, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Heathis Ocean Kingdom, visited the Panda Country at the invitation of the Panda Country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Both parties decided to officially establish diplomatic relations and exchange ambassadors. On the same day, the official news agency of the Panda Country announced the mutual exchange of journalists and branches with the Heathis International News Agency. On November 5, 2005, representatives from the Ministry of Commerce of the Panda Country signed a $100 billion Phase 1 infrastructure cooperation agreement with the Ministry of Land and Immigration Management of the Heathis Ocean Kingdom. Due to the unique nature of the Heathis Ocean Kingdom, Qin Shaohai had just established a new department, the Ministry of Land and Immigration Management. The Heathis Ocean Kingdom will eventually become a purely immigrant nation with immigrants as the main body of the state, which is why the immigration bureaus from other countries were promoted here to the Immigration Department. And because the Heathis Ocean Kingdom is a country entirely formed by land reclamation, the Land Department also has high standards, thus merging the functions of the two departments into the Ministry of Land and Immigration Management. Following the establishment of diplomatic relations, countries such as the Panda Country, White Bear, the Middle Eastern Big Beard, the Northeast Asian Little Fatty Sare Karst Country, and Venezuela all called the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Heathis Ocean Kingdom, hoping to initiate diplomatic negotiations as soon as possible. The recent series of military and diplomatic actions by the Heathis Ocean Kingdom has caused great panic among Western countries, and their fear is not of the Heathis Ocean Kingdom itself, but of the lack of response from the United States regarding these actions. Especially regarding the blatant humiliation of the United States and the Eastern Barbarian Security Treaty, as well as the Heathis Ocean Kingdom's open disrespect towards NATO. The United States has made no statements. Simultaneously, the United States has recently canceled all press conferences, and military bases across the country are on high alert, including overseas bases where U.S. soldiers are staying put as if facing a great enemy. On the contrary, the Heathis Ocean Kingdom, which has been making reckless moves after the diplomatic interactions with the Panda Country, has begun a new round of provocations. On November 5, 2005, the Heathis Ocean Kingdom announced it would invite military and political officials from a certain South American country to visit, as well as the chief of staff of its military, to visit the Fire God City at the Fire Province in the northwest of Heathis Island. During the visit, the Heathis Ocean Kingdom suggested exchanging views on the sovereignty issue of the Lervinas Islands. This directly pricked the nerves of the John Empire, which promptly announced the dispatch of its newly launched D-32 Brave, a Type 45 destroyer, and a Type 42 destroyer to the Lervinas Islands for a short-term garrison mission. Next, the Hethys Ocean Kingdom announced it would send a newly launched Type 075 amphibious assault ship named Shrimp along with 2 accompanying Type 052D destroyers and 1 Highland-class nuclear attack submarine to visit a certain South American country. On November 7, 2005, the then Prime Minister of the John country urgently flew to the United States seeking support, but U.S. President George W. Bush did not meet him. At the same time, George W. Bush also canceled his planned visit to the Eastern Barbarians and Kimchi country on the 15th of this month. On November 8, 2005, NATO member states held an emergency consultation in Selbrü where NATO Secretary General Petrus strongly condemned the Hethys Ocean Kingdom in the absence of the United States, stating that member states must not be attacked without reason and NATO would take strong measures to retaliate. On November 9, 2005, the Panda country announced it would send the flagship missile cruiser Variag and the Marshal Shaposhnikov frigate of the Pacific Fleet to the Hethys Ocean Kingdom for joint military exercises with its navy. On November 11, 2005, the Hethys Ocean Kingdom announced the latest model of the base-class Sea Patrol ship. The base has been launched and will begin patrolling the exclusive economic zone of the Hethys Ocean Kingdom in 5 days. The ship is equipped with a sharply angled bow-sloped sides and a wide stern, making it very suitable for collision combat. The base-class Sea Patrol ship measures 174 meters in length and 20 meters in width. It has a draft of 7.6 meters, a standard displacement of 8,400 tons, and a full load displacement of 9,600 tons. It is manned by 54 crew members, utilizes gas turbine propulsion, has a maximum speed of 35 knots, and a range of 750 nautical miles at 15 knots. According to calculations from the Planetary Fortress, this type of patrol ship can sink all active naval vessels except for aircraft carriers. In light of the kangaroo country's involvement in the blockade against our country and their arrogant and unreasonable warnings, the Hethys Ocean Kingdom will send the base sea patrol ship and 2 missile destroyers to patrol the waters near kangaroo country, hoping that various parties in kangaroo country will not speculate excessively and will not interfere with our Navy's routine military operations. Any threatening behavior against our vessels will be regarded as acts of war and will face retaliatory military. At the White House, the White Palace, the President's Executive Office, and the National Security Council held an emergency meeting. When all committee members were seated together, President George W. Bush stood alone with his back to everyone at his presidential desk, a gesture practiced to mimic a certain assassinated president. At critical moments, he would assume this posture to listen to reports from his subordinates. CIA Director Felix Verdes said, "Mr. President, we still have not gathered any information regarding the origins of the Hethys Ocean Kingdom. They seem to have appeared out of thin air, leaving no historical trace, and those who know their country seem to have come from nowhere." The White House Chief of Staff Hortz asked George, "What is most important now is not to investigate how they came about, but to understand how we disappeared. Have you not noticed that the Hethys Ocean Kingdom is extremely tough with a vendetta against any offense and even dares to directly use missiles to attack the U.S. homeland? Unless they possess overwhelming military strength, it is sheer suicide. The reality is that the Hethys Ocean Kingdom has this capability, gentlemen. Their aircraft carriers are as excellent as ours. Their fighter jets are even more advanced than ours, and their nuclear submarines are no less than ours. The key is that they possess strategic nuclear missiles far superior to ours, which are multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles with decoy warheads," General Gilbrand, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said helplessly. Their president has always been a mysterious figure. Not only does he not make public appearances, but we don't even know his name. This Prime Minister Dharma is merely a puppet. Secretary of State Lord said, with a worried look glancing at everyone, before continuing, "Gentlemen, I've also noticed that this mysterious president seems to have a strong preference for the Panda country, but he is certainly not from or of its ethnicity. Why?" Lord enjoys watching others appear confused because the people of the Panda country never take the initiative to seek trouble, while this president seems relentless in causing it, for instance, constantly pressuring the Eastern Barbarians and even military strikes actively provoking countries like Banana and Maple Leaf. The recent incident on Lervinas Island was also initiated by him, and today this new warship going to patrol kangaroo country was also his provocation, challenging our security treaty with the U.S. and Eastern Barbarians was initiated by him, as was challenging Article 5 of NATO. He tirelessly stirs up trouble everywhere. This style of fearing that the world will be peaceful and quiet is remarkably similar to our great United States, but such actions are permissible for us, but absolutely not for other countries. Vice President Chester added, "Yes, Lord, this was originally our job, but now this detestable Hethys Ocean Kingdom is stirring up trouble everywhere." 2. After hearing everyone's opinions, George W. Bush turned to look at everyone and said, "Although the Hethys Ocean Kingdom is stirring up trouble everywhere, their target of attack is us, whether it is against the U.S. an Eastern Barbarian Security Treaty, or against NATO's Collective Defense Clause if we do not take action and allow the Heathis Ocean Kingdom to continuously challenge our bottom line, then Western allies and other countries following us will completely lose confidence in us, which will fundamentally undermine our hegemony a United States. Without hegemony, my God, that situation is simply unimaginable. Therefore, we must retaliate quickly from every aspect of our control in politics, military, economy, environment, human rights, etc., while utilizing some follower countries to let them take the lead as our cannon fodder. In short, we must launch a campaign to annihilate the Heathis Ocean Kingdom. Upon hearing the president's words, National Security Advisor Pierre Rost produced a pre-prepared top-secret document and said, "Those not affiliated with the military, please leave now." Only 5 individuals remained, including Secretary of Defense Laval, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Gillett Brown, and CIA Director Fairbanks. Pierre Rost continued, "This is a joint document from the U.S. National Nuclear Security Administration and the Strategic Command detailing the investigation into the Ohio-class submarine incident and an inspection report of our nuclear arsenal. We suspect that the Ohio-class strategic nuclear submarine was hijacked by terrorists. The submarine's captain had repeatedly used pseudonyms and alternate accounts online to express anti-American sentiments, leading us to believe he sympathized with terrorists, perhaps even had ties to them. However, the reason for firing missiles at the Heathis Ocean Kingdom and our own warships at this critical moment remains unclear, as there were no other targets in the vicinity. These 2 were the largest military objectives. Yet we have not determined how they managed to bypass our systems to execute a hard launch. Our greatest concern is that the Ohio-class strategic nuclear submarine USS Alabama was carrying 24 Trident D5 submarine-launched ballistic missiles, 20 of which were equipped with nuclear warheads, and only 4 with conventional ones. However, none of the missiles detonated over the target area resulted in a nuclear explosion, and satellite monitoring detected no residual radioactive material over the Heathis Ocean Kingdom after the missiles were destroyed. This indicates our missiles had no nuclear warheads, remarked Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Gillett Brown. Pierre Rost nodded and continued, "Following an emergency inspection by the Nuclear Security Administration and the Strategic Command, no issues were found with our nuclear missiles. Their functions and safety mechanisms are intact, and the retrieved warheads showed no anomalies in radiation levels." Thus the president, and we believe there are 2 possibilities. First, our nuclear warheads were deliberately replaced, meaning the USS Alabama committed treason. They secretly swapped our nuclear warheads with conventional ones, and then used this forced launch to cover their tracks. Second, the forced hard launch triggered the internal safety locks of the nuclear warheads, preventing detonation over the target area. Since the target zone was entirely ocean, the warheads remained intact during the explosion and sank to the Pacific floor. So are you telling us that 20 nuclear warheads from Trident D5 submarine-launched ballistic missiles have been stolen by terrorists? Exclaimed Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Gillett Brown in astonishment. That's correct, General Brown. My dear Ms. Pierre Rost, do you realize what this means? Each D5 missile carries 8 to 12 W-88 warheads, each with a yield of 47.5 kilotons. That equates to approximately 5 megatons per Trident D5 warhead. Compared to the 15 kiloton Little Boy dropped in the past, each Trident D5 is equivalent to over 300 Little Boys. If all these nuclear warheads fall into terrorist hands, it could lead to global annihilation. General Gillett Brown exclaimed. That's why we kept Director Fairbanks in this military meeting. George will need to investigate this, President Joe Smallwood interjected. Of course, the second possibility is also likely. If it's the latter, we can rest easy. But if not, we must find a way to prove our nuclear warheads are functional and can be detonated. Secretary of Defense Laval's eyes lit up and said, "Then arrange another Ohio-class submarine." No, our friend has confirmed that a Typhoon-class strategic nuclear submarine TK-20, previously stationed at the Northern Fleet submarine base in the Nerpikia Bay of the Kola Peninsula, is due to arrive at the Vladivostok Naval Port in the Pacific for a secret test mission, Rice reminded. "Are you suggesting we steal it?" asked CIA Director Fairbanks. "No, my dear George, you need to have someone steal it, and also acquire a P-39 submarine-launched ballistic missile. Then our people can replace its warhead with our own. This must be done covertly with no trace linking back to us," President Joe Smallwood concluded. At Nerpikia Bay on the Kola Peninsula, Lieutenant Commander Deramelov had 4 children and a father disabled from the Second Chechen War. Despite his rank, his family lived in poor conditions, and his wife had passed away from illness. What troubled him most was that his submarine, due to a shortage of P-39 intercontinental ballistic missiles, was docked indefinitely. Russia's struggling economy led to military budget cuts, canceling training and activities, and even basic maintenance was neglected. Without deployments or missions, there were no allowances. Subsistence pay was the main source of income, especially for submariners. Deramelov's daily routine was to report to the base on time, and then return home occasionally, buying a bottle of vodka on the street. But now he could only glance at his beloved vodka as a standard 240-ruble bottle was a luxury he had to forego. Everything changed because of a woman named Layman. Returning from the base, Duramalov found a woman in a white dress and black stockings lying disheveled under a street lamp with half a bottle of vodka. She was clearly a tourist, as locals didn't dress like that or get drunk on just half a bottle. Kindly, Duramalov picked her up and checked her into a nearby small inn. Unable to resist the allure of her curvaceous beauty, he undressed her and climbed on top. Afterward, he said he was a naval officer, couldn't help himself due to her beauty and sensuality, but would take responsibility, and begged her not to call the police. Gradually, the small inn became their regular meeting place. Each time this woman named Layman surprised him, first, she taught him which stocks to buy for profit. Second, she gave him a gold watch as a token of affection. Third, she gifted him gold for his exceptional performance in bed, claiming it was for the children. Slowly, she coaxed him into sharing stories about his submarine. Duramalov soon realized she was wealthy. Enchanted by her seductive body, he spent almost every day after reporting to the base meeting her at the inn. Unknowingly, Duramalov divulged vast amounts of intelligence to Layman. Her feigned ecstasy and moans of being conquered during their encounters revived his long-lost sense of dominance and pride, and he became utterly lost in her embrace. This was one of the CIA's many planted assets in Russia. Upon receiving a new mission, Layman used her acting skills in bed substantial cash and promises of U.S. citizenship for Duramalov and his family to successfully persuade him to cooperate. As the deputy commander of the Typhoon-class strategic nuclear submarine TK-20, Duramalov had loyal subordinates. Meanwhile, the CIA orchestrated a strange illness for the captain, leaving Duramalov to command the secret mission from the Kola Peninsula's Nerpikia Bay to Vladivostok. This was merely a routine long-range mission to test the Bering Strait's passability and map its seabed. Kotzebue Sound, Alaska, a secret naval base with a mobile floating dry dock. A convoy of 5 Humvees and 1 heavy military truck slowly rolled into a mountain base. After traveling 2 kilometers, they arrived at a hidden intermountain dock. Nearby engineers and sailors began gently lifting warhead-shaped cargo from the heavy truck. They then connected each warhead to a cart-mounted computer. Meanwhile, the Typhoon-class strategic nuclear submarine TK-20, which had just completed identification and communication with the military communication station on Wrangel Island, began to descend from its prescribed depth of 80 meters to 300 meters. This effectively evaded external detection. Unless the Typhoon reported its position voluntarily, the Bear Country could only rely on the submarine's onboard locator and identification device to determine its location and speed. After sending a fragmentary emergency code back to the Northern Fleet base, the TK-20 nuclear submarine officially shut down its locator and identification device. To the Bear Country, the world's largest nuclear submarine had vanished without a trace. The TK-20 then shifted into a sprint mode, racing at a high speed of 34 knots beneath the Arctic ice. Thanks to countless explorations and voyages during the Cold War, the Bear Country's submarine force, especially its nuclear submarine fleet, was intimately familiar with the seabed in this region. Otherwise, they would never have dared to maneuver so swiftly underwater. After disappearing for 18 hours, the TK-20 slowly entered the secret naval base in Kotzebue Sound. American engineers and workers immediately began the hectic task of replacing the warheads. At that moment, a squad of American soldiers boarded the TK-20 nuclear submarine, rifles in hand. In the submarine's crew quarters, dozens of sailors who had refused to betray their country were awaiting processing. No witnesses could be left alive for this kind of secret mission. It was a specialty of the Americans. The moment he betrayed his motherland, Duramalov was escorted off the submarine by Layman, who took his arm and led him to a temporary guest room in the base. They were to engage in a 2-hour bout of intimacy, buying time for the American engineers outside to complete the warhead replacement detonation system integration and code unlocking. In times of extreme tension, using a woman to relieve stress had proven most effective, which was why the CIA had specially arranged for Layman to fly in urgently. She was also there to monitor Duramalov. After their friendly exercise, Layman would board the submarine as his adjutant for full-time surveillance. Planet Fortress, Presidential Lounge. Qin Xiaohai, who had been without female companionship for a long time while surrounded by exquisite artificial beauties, had grown increasingly irritable over the past few days. A voice kept echoing in his mind. Spring has arrived, all things revive, and it's the season for reproduction. It was all because he had once said to feign nobility and aloofness, "You are artificial beauties, I can't cross that line." Now he was suffering from a face full of pimples as a result. To prevent himself from losing control, Qin Xiaohai decided today that he would not see any of the artificial beauties on the Planet Fortress. To that end, he had appointed a male adjutant. Unless there was an emergency, he basically stayed inside this presidential lounge. At this moment, Qin Xiaohai stared blankly at the vast ocean outside the lounge, but the annoying voice crept back into his mind. "If you don't know Wu Tinglan, you've seen it all in vain." What exactly had Wu Tinglan acted in? Why did netizens rate her so highly? Unfortunately, by his generation, the famous names were already Hayakawa, Surina Hitano Yui, and Aoi Sora. He had never actually watched any of Wu Tinglan's films. Should he ask the Planet Fortress to play one for him? Just as Qin Xiaohai was lost and thought, the lounge door burst open with a bang. Lan Yuer, clad in a tight-fitting suit, her long legs striding with a sensual gait, and her curvaceous hips swaying, walked over to Qin Xiaohai. Didn't I say you don't have to follow me today? And haven't I told you countless times to knock before entering? If I had a girlfriend, and we were engaged in some up-and-down back-and-forth exercise, and you barged in like this, should I continue, or should I stop? Qin Xiaohai said angrily. Lan Yuer wasted no time, and said bluntly, Mr. President, urgent situation. The Planet Fortress intelligence system has detected an unexpected appearance of a WC-135 Phoenix nuclear reconnaissance aircraft. Nuclear reconnaissance aircraft? What the hell? Qin Xiaohai instantly cast aside romantic thoughts. Mr. President, the WC-135 Phoenix nuclear reconnaissance aircraft is the only U.S. platform used for airborne collection of debris and fallout from nuclear weapon explosions. The collected material is used to identify and verify evidence of other nations' nuclear tests. Deployed with the 45th Reconnaissance Squadron at Offutt Air Force Base, Nebraska, the WC-135 Phoenix is a nuclear sniffer aircraft. It is equipped with an external flow device that allows for the collection of airborne particles on filter paper for analysis in the event of a nuclear explosion. The atmospheric sampling and collection suite includes advanced atmospheric research equipment ARE, including the whole air collection system WACS, the directional gamma sensor system DGSS, the radiation monitoring and analysis system RMES, the U-1B particle sampler assembly and supervisory control and data acquisition SCADA. The aircraft is equipped with a particle collector harvester capable of comprehensive radiation detection using sensors and a platform-independent gas collector. Maximum range 4000 nautical miles, 7408 km. Maximum speed 648. 57 km/h, 403 miles per hour, 350 knots, Lan Yuer explained. Deploying a nuclear reconnaissance aircraft at this time means they must know in advance where a nuclear explosion will occur, or they suspect one will. Have the Planet Fortress tap into the WC-135 Phoenix's communication system to see what we can find. Yes, Mr. President. Also, where is this WC-135 Phoenix now? Where is it headed? Mr. President, the WC-135 Phoenix is currently at Hickam Air Force Base on Oahu. Its final destination is Anderson Air Force Base on Guam. If it weren't for us, old Uncle Sam's broken plane would definitely be targeting the bear country or the panda country. But now their target can only be us. Keep a close eye on that broken plane. Yes, Mr. President. With that, Lan Yuer prepared to leave. Hey Yuer, wait a moment. Qin Xiaohai turned around and asked in a low voice. I'm here, Mr. President. It's been some time since the warship modified you. I, as president, want to inspect you to see if any parts have problems like oil or water leaks, and also to check for material fatigue in the artificial skin. Unexpectedly, Lan Yuer walked directly up to Qin Xiaohai and said, Please, Mr. President, go ahead and inspect. As she spoke, she even twirled around in front of him. While Qin Xiaohai was still stunned, Lan Yuer added playfully, Yuer also wants to know how her body differs from a human's. Does Mr. President wish to inspect here, or shall we go to the hot spring room one floor down? Qin Xiaohai, who had been laboring tirelessly with Lan Yuer in the presidential luxury bedroom from yesterday afternoon until late into the night, arrived at the Planetary Fortress Command Center early in the morning, refreshed and invigorated. The pimples on his face had vanished, and his dispirited mood had lifted immensely. However, this was the first time Qin Xiaohai entered the command center without being the focus of everyone's attention. Because some of the female staff had their eyes fixed on Lan Yuer behind Qin Xiaohai. Somewhat puzzled, Qin Xiaohai turned around and discovered that Lan Yuer's uniform had been changed to the same white as his own. The creamy white uniform accentuated Lan Yuer's figure, making her appear even more seductively slender. Yuer, why is this? We only had that one encounter last night. How did your uniform change already? By the way, your hair has turned black too. What's going on? Mr. President, before sharing physical intimacy with you, Yuer was still an artificial intelligence, merely flesh and blood with a high degree of realism modified by the warship systems. But last night's passion infused Yuer's body with your DNA, allowing the warship and all the synthetic intelligent beings to sense Yuer's transformation. In other words, now Lan Yuer can also enjoy certain privileges reserved for humans, or rather Lan Yuer now surpasses everyone on this ship in ethical standing. Qin Xiaohai, exceptionally sharp-witted, listened for a while and then asked, Yuer, let me see if I've got this right. If I'm the boss in their eyes, then you're the boss wife. Yes, Mr. President. That analogy is very easy to understand, Lan Yuer replied, hopping about joyfully. Hearing Lan Yuer's affirmative answer, Qin Xiaohai asked weakly, I want to confirm one thing. Do the female crew members on this ship have a sense of rivalry or jealousy? No, Mr. President. The warship's intelligence system does not equip us with such emotions, Lanuer said solemnly. That's good, that's good. If they did, it would be a real problem. I alone couldn't handle thousands of them. Before those bastards from Sam's country even make a move, I'd be done in by my own actions, Qin Shaohai said with a wry smile. Relieved of his concerns, Qin Shaohai was in high spirits. He turned to the duty officer chief of staff of the Joint Operations Directorate INHA and asked, "Where is the base-class coastal patrol ship?" Mr. President, it arrived at the west coast of the Kangaroo yesterday and began patrolling along the 12 nautical mile baseline of the territorial sea. As of this morning, 2 Kangaroo patrol boats and 3 FA-18 fighters have approached our patrol formation. Good, very good. But don't be polite. Order the base-class coastal patrol ship to retract its main gun and close its missile launch tubes, then proceed to cruise within their territorial waters. Have the 2 Type 052DS fully armed and ready to respond at any time. We just taught them a lesson a few days ago with a broken frigate. Today I want to see if they've learned to behave. Also order the establishment of a Maritime Fisheries Association. Announce it when the base approaches their territorial waters, and after the announcement, enter the territorial sea. Very well, Mr. President. They'll see to it immediately. Northwest of Darwin Harbor. The base-class coastal patrol ship base officially entered Kangaroo territorial waters. Its forward main gun barrel was raised and covered with a tarpaulin, and the vertical missile launch system was also concealed. 2 Type 052D destroyers were stationed 2 nautical miles away. Since spotting the uninvited base, the Kangaroo Navy had taken the matter seriously, urgently dispatching 2 patrol boats and 3 FA-18 fighters on duty nearby. Vessel of unknown nationality on course 030 is speed 20 knots. This is the Kangaroo Coast Guard patrol boat. You have entered our contiguous zone and are approaching our territorial sea boundary. Please leave immediately. Please leave immediately. Number 2033, Kangaroo Navy Guardian-class patrol boat. Are you a signatory to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea? The naval officers on the patrol boat were baffled by this question, unsure of their intentions. The boat's captain would grumpily ordered, "Tell them that as the leading power in the Southern Hemisphere, we are of course a signatory to the convention." Yes, we are indeed a signatory. Then kindly get out of the way, because under the UNCLOS we have the right to navigate here. We may even enter your territorial waters for innocent passage soon. What? This? What kind of situation is this? We've never dealt with this before, exclaimed the Guardian-class patrol boat captain, would utterly bewildered. Report it first. We can't handle this. Their tonnage is too large. We're just patrol boats, Wood said, embodying the unique Australian spirit and quickly thinking of a solution. But the Kangaroo Navy was too weak. Their largest destroyers were at Cuttabool and Stirling in the south, and it would take considerable time for them to arrive. In the meantime, they could only rely on patrol boats and frigates of around 300 tons. Even the nearest frigate would take 4 hours to get there, by which time the intruders would have already entered their territorial waters and slapped them in the face. Fortunately, the Air Force could respond quickly. The 3 FA-18 fighters, upon receiving orders, sped, but before the FA-18 pilots could make their call, the base-class patrol ship hailed them first. FA-18 fighters of the Kangaroo Air Force on course 093, altitude 100 meters. This is the base coastal patrol ship of the Hedes Ocean Kingdom Navy. Please state your intentions and maintain a distance of 40 nautical miles from our fleet. Otherwise, you will be shot down. WTF. They're telling us to leave. This is our territorial waters. How can they be more arrogant than our Sam father? Despite their anger, proper international communication protocol had to be followed. Base coastal patrol ship of the Hedes Ocean Kingdom. This is the Kangaroo Air Force FA-18 flight. Your vessel is currently in our contiguous zone. Please state your intentions and leave immediately. This is your final warning. Repeat, this is your final warning. FA-18 fighters, our naval fleet, is navigating in accordance with the UNCLOS. Do not interfere with our patrol or you will be shot down. Repeat, crossing the 40 nautical mile warning line will result in your being shot down under the principle of self-defense. This is our territorial sea and contiguous zone. Turn away immediately. Turn away immediately. While the Kangaroo Air Force FA-18s were issuing their calls, the base-class patrol ship formally entered their territorial waters. You have entered our territorial waters. Leave immediately. This is your final warning. If you do not leave, we are ordered to engage. After waiting several minutes with no response from the Hedes Ocean Kingdom base, the FA-18 pilots were puzzled. Suddenly, 3 HQ-9 long-range surface-to-air missiles launched from the 2 Type 052D destroyers. The 3 FA-18 pilots, while waiting for a reply, had crossed the warning line set by the Hedes Ocean Kingdom base. Upon receiving the radar lock warning, the 3 FA-18s quickly scattered and began evasive maneuvers while reporting to base. Base, we are under attack by surface-to-air missiles from Hedes Ocean Kingdom warships. Evading. Using inertial navigation stabilization and terminal active radar guidance, the HQ-9B missiles continuously adjusted their flight path and attitude, always locking onto the wildly maneuvering FA-18S. Powered by a new high-specific-impulse solid-fuel propellant, the HQ-9BS unleashed tremendous energy in the terminal phase, suddenly accelerating to Mach 6. Accompanied by the desperate screams of the FA-18 pilots, 3 massive fireworks bloomed in the skies, using an advanced surface-to-air missile from a decade later to engage an aging FA-18 from the early 2000s. The HQ-9B missiles scored a perfect hit every time. On November 17, 2005, at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs press conference, Hela, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Hethiopian Kingdom, who was in the midst of diplomatic negotiations and commercial cooperation, attended today's press conference at the invitation of various media stationed in Panda Kingdom and with the consent of the Panda Kingdom's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. At the beginning of the meeting, a journalist from the Kangaroo Kingdom stood up and asked in a presumptuous manner, "Madam Hela, may I ask why your country has sent warships into our territorial waters?" Hela smiled slightly and said, "Esteemed journalist, please identify yourself first. As our country has been involved in disputes with many nations recently, I cannot recall the specifics when you ask me in this manner. You are feigning ignorance. You have rudely invaded our territorial waters and shot down our military aircraft within them. This is a blatant act of aggression. Western nations like the Sam Kingdom will certainly not stand idly by." Hela smiled again, still composed. This journalist seems somewhat agitated. Even now we do not know which country or media he represents. Truly impolite. Our foreign ministry has clear regulations prohibiting exchanges with unnamed individuals. Therefore, next question. This is... Before he could finish, security politely removed his microphone. "Madam Hela, I am a journalist from the Broccoli Kingdom Media. We have noted that since yesterday 3 of your warships have invaded the territorial waters and contiguous zone of the Kangaroo Kingdom and without cause shot down 3 of its Air Force aircraft over its territorial sea. How do you explain this act of wanton trampling on another nation's sovereignty and territorial integrity in serious violation of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea?" Sir, although you lack the most basic understanding of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, at least, first our Navy was navigating normally in its contiguous zone, not the territorial sea. Although later the base fishing vessel, a fisheries inspection ship under our Marine Fisheries Association, entered the Kangaroo Kingdom's territorial waters, that is a civilian vessel. According to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, civilian vessels may exercise innocent passage in territorial waters. However, their Air Force, disregarding the Convention's provisions, dangerously approached our formation. Our Navy has the obligation to protect our civilian vessels and thus shot them down. On behalf of the Hethiopian Kingdom, I hereby lodge a serious protest with the Kangaroo Kingdom, demanding an apology and compensation. At the same time, our country has decided to retaliate against this hegemonic behavior. Our base fishing vessel will be deployed within their territorial waters for 1 month until the Kangaroo Kingdom recognizes its mistake and apologizes to us. Our vessel has fully complied with the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea throughout the process, reflecting the utmost respect for this international convention. Minister Hela, hello. I am a journalist from the Maple Leaf Kingdom. We have noticed that just 15 minutes before your destroyer shot down the Kangaroo Kingdom's Air Force jets, your country announced that the base patrol vessel had been transferred to the jurisdiction of the Marine Fisheries Association. This is a blatant provocation. Your base vessel is fully equipped with naval guns, missiles, and torpedoes. How can you shamelessly reclassify it as civilian? Esteemed journalist, may I ask, did the naval guns on our base vessel fire? Were any missiles launched? Did any torpedoes explode? No, the Maple Leaf Kingdom journalist shook his head. Upon hearing his answer, Hela gave another professional slight smile. Journalist, since no guns were fired and no missiles launched, how do you know these items on the base are military equipment? Did your country perhaps send spies into ours? No, our country would never send spies. But those are clearly cannons and missiles. The journalist was stunned into incoherence. This country's foreign minister lied without even drafting a script. How could she be even more shameless than their own political elites? Journalists, do Westerners all share the same flaw, assuming that something is what it appears to be? Finally, let me tell you, what appears to be a cannon is actually a crew clothes-drying rack, and what you call a vertical missile launch system is merely a series of freezer compartments. Otherwise, where would we store the fish we catch? Madam Hela, I am a journalist from the Eastern Barbarian Kingdom's news agency. I would like to ask, please wait, Hela interrupted him. I do not accept interviews from Eastern Barbarian media. And I take this opportunity to reiterate to the Eastern Barbarian Kingdom, your warship unjustifiably obstructed our Navy's vessel, experiencing mechanical failure, leading to the sinking of your destroyer. Even under the banner of human rights, we must demand an apology and compensation from your government for the over 100 Eastern Barbarian sailors who perished. Secondly, your country has closely followed the Sam Kingdom in imposing an embargo and blockade against us and has allowed its little bird carrier strike group to use the Yokosuka naval base, deeply hurting the feelings of the Heathis Ocean Kingdom people. Lastly, instead of actively communicating with us to resolve the destroyer collision incident, Eastern barbarian politicians have visited the Yasukuni toilet. Our country we urge the Eastern barbarian government to face history, correct its stance, fulfill its international obligations as a defeated nation without delay, and promptly apologize and compensate us for the destroyer collision and the sanctions imposed on our country. Otherwise, the Heathis Ocean Kingdom's naval carrier strike group will punch in monthly off the coast of the Eastern barbarian kingdom to encourage your government to improve administrative efficiency. Madam Hella, I am a BBC journalist. I would like to ask, your country has dispatched a nuclear submarine to strike the Maple Leaf Kingdom, a NATO ally. Are you not afraid of powerful NATO retaliation? Hella maintained her professional smile. Why we used cruise missiles to strike the Maple Leaf Kingdom has been reiterated many times by our foreign ministry, so I will not explain again. As for your last question, I would like to say 3 things. First, our country has no interest in organizations like NATO, the South Treaty, the West Treaty, or the East Treaty. We did not know the Maple Leaf Kingdom was a member of NATO, nor are we interested in that information. Does being a NATO member entitle a country to arbitrarily threaten or sanction another? Second, regarding your mention of NATO retaliation, I want to tell you 9 days have passed since the strike on the Maple Leaf Kingdom. Where is NATO's retaliation? Third, I advise the Maple Leaf Kingdom not to deliberately delay by relying on the 2 ordinary words NATO. Our country has been waiting for an apology and compensation from its government. I reiterate here, I hope that through this retaliatory strike its government will pull back from the brink, quickly adopt its proper position of large in area, but weaken power, and voluntarily apologize to us and compensate for the 16 cruise missiles and the cost of the nuclear submarine's deployment. Otherwise, like the Eastern Barbarian Kingdom, the Heathis Ocean Kingdom will dispatch naval forces to the waters off the Maple Leaf Kingdom once a month. Madam Hella, hello. I am a journalist from the Associated Press. I would like to ask, your country so domineeringly attacks our Western allies. Are you not afraid of the Sam Kingdom's formidable military power and vast nuclear arsenal? The Associated Press. Being called domineering by a hegemonic power, though domineering, we are still threatened with nuclear weapons. Actually, I have little to say about the Sam Kingdom, but there is one thing our president greatly admires about its approach: freedom of navigation. Our president specifically discussed this topic at a national security meeting and suggested forming a small fleet to learn about freedom of navigation off the coast of the Sam Kingdom.